Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, May 17, 2016. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Avalos?
Presente.
Avalos present. Supervisor Breed?
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Campos?
Present.
Campos present. Supervisor Cohen? Cohen present. Supervisor Farrell? Farrell not present. Supervisor Kim? Kim not present. Supervisor Marr?
Here.
Marr present. Supervisor Peskin?
Present.
Peskin present. Supervisor Tang?
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Wiener?
Present.
Wiener present. Supervisor Yee?
Present.
Yee present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Supervisor Kim? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And colleagues, before we move on with today's meeting, I've lost my voice, and therefore Supervisor Katie Tang will be conducting today's meeting. So be nice, everybody. Thank you.
I bet Harvey will eat it.
What's happening?
Oh.
All right. Thank you. And first, before we begin, I did want to, colleagues, welcome in the chamber. We have a delegation here from Beijing, a legislative delegation. So welcome. 欢迎我们北京来的代表团。谢谢你们来旧金山。All right, and with that, Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are none to report, Madam Chair.
Okay. Sorry?
What are you trying to say?
Oh, okay. Well, we will have a representative here from the delegation say a few words without, if there aren't any objections.
Thank you.
尊敬的各位议员，我们很荣幸地观摩贵市参事会的全体会议。
Distinct supervisors, it is an honor to have this opportunity to observe your plenary meeting.
我们是来自中华人民共和国首都北京市的人大和政协的代表团。这是我们北京市第一次组成立法机构和监督部门的代表团来美国访问。
We are a delegation of Beijing Municipal People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Beijing Municipal Committee. The first of its kind consisted of local legislators and supervisors to visit our counterparts here.
中美两国人民交往历史很长，我们的所在地旧金山是见证中美两国人民交往历史的伟大的城市。我们来这里的目的在于继续加强双方之间的交流。我们希望学习你们的经验。当然，在交往的过程中，我们也可以介绍中国地方人大和政协的运作方式和方法。同时，我们也欢迎在座的议员们组成代表团，到北京的人大和政协去访问。到时，我们一定会热情地接待你们。
China and the U.S. enjoy a long history of friendly exchanges. San Francisco is a great city that bears witness to such exchanges. We come here to exchange ideas between us and learn from you. And you are welcome to visit us in Beijing as a delegation. If you do come, we will definitely receive you with warm hospitality.
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 谢谢. And now, colleagues, are there...
Can I also?
Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Yi.
I just want to welcome them. Welcome the delegation from Beijing. So 欢迎你们来旧金山.
Thank you. Supervisor Mar.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Chen Shu and the delegation. If Victor Lim could translate, that would be really helpful for me. I visited Beijing about 10 years ago, and it was a great honor to meet different officials there at that time. But to have you come here from your city of 22 million people and the authority and the awesome tasks that you bring with you brings us honor here to our city of San Francisco.
If we could turn on the microphone. Thank you.
石山市马兆光呢，在2006年有机会到北京去访问。今天呢，很高兴访问团到我们市政府拜访。在北京首都超过2200万人这么大的城市呢，是世界之冠。所以呢，我们也希望可以从北京学习。欢迎你们到我们旧金山。
And I was just going to add, as San Francisco advances China SF and many other programs to build relationships, business, but also people-to-people relationships, I look forward to visiting Beijing sometime soon, hopefully with Supervisor Yi and others, to visit the schools, but to see the great people of Beijing.
希望可以早日呢跟其他议员，比如说于景安、石山市，到北京去访问学校、访问医疗，还有政治的机构部门。谢谢你们到我们三藩市。
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Mar. And of course, I just want to join everyone in welcoming our delegation here from Beijing. And of course, we hope to continue developing our relationship with all of you here. I hope that you learn a lot on your visit and welcome you to come back to San Francisco. So 谢谢你来到旧金山。
谭凯丽议员呢也欢迎大家到旧金山，希望我们继续可以交流，也很高兴见到大家谢谢谢谢。
Okay, all right. With that then, colleagues, now we'll go to our approval of meeting minutes. So colleagues, are there any changes to our April 12th, 2016 board meeting minutes? Seeing none, then if we can have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes as presented. Motion by Supervisor Mar, second by Supervisor Farrell, and we'll accept those minutes. Will be approved after public comment. Madam Clerk, will you please read the consent agenda?
Items 1 through 4 are on consent. If a member does not find these items routine, an item may be severed and considered separately.
Thank you, colleagues. Would anyone like to sever any items from our consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, if we can go to roll call.
On items 1 through 4, Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yi?
Aye.
Yi, aye. Supervisor Avalos? Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed? Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Mar?
Aye.
Mar, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. These items are finally passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, can we please call the next item?
Item 5 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to require that prepackaged food and beverages sold in vending machines on city property meet specified nutritional standards and calorie labeling requirements, as well as other requirements.
All right, if we can do roll call, please.
On item 5, Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yi?
Aye.
Yi, aye. Supervisor Avalos?
C.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed? Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. Supervisor Mar?
Aye.
Mar, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
No.
Peskin, no. There are 10 ayes and 1 no with Supervisor Peskin in the dissent.
This ordinance is finally passed. If we can please call items 6 and 7 together, please.
Items 6 and 7 are 2 resolutions that approve the home detention and electronic monitoring program rules and regulations in the Sheriff's Department, and to approve the evidence of financial responsibility demonstrated by the program administrator and leaders in community alternatives for the 2015 and 2016 calendar years.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim?
Thank you, President Supervisor Tang. We did spend the last few weeks on conferring with the Sheriff's Department on the electronic monitoring program, and my initial concerns was about requiring payment, $125 registration fee, $35 per day, for a program that is clearly actually saving the city money, given that our city jails are far more expensive than this program. And if an individual is eligible and safe to be in a community with some monitoring, that we should make this program free. After some discussions, we've learned that many participants largely are waived their fees because they are income eligible. And so understanding that we have this program of income eligibility that allows fees to be waived, and that there is not a collections agency when individuals do not participate in the program, I do feel comfortable voting for these items today. However, I will continue to work with both the Sheriff's Department and Adult Probation to make sure that we are saving money within our county jail program when we have deemed an individual safe, and to figure out how we can continue to ensure that individuals are not prohibited from being in this program because they cannot afford to.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Kim. So with that, then, if we can actually do a roll call for items 6 and 7.
Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos?
Sí.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed? Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim? Aye. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. These resolutions are adopted. Item 8, please.
Item 8 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to allow departments authorized to perform public work to procure contracts through a best value process using a combination of price and qualifications with bid discounts applicable to price, and to require contractor performance evaluations and the creation and maintenance of a database.
Thank you. Supervisor Wiener?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this legislation is about making sure that taxpayers get the quality infrastructure, construction, and work that they deserve. The legislation introduces a new contracting procedure called best value, where both cost and bid amount, as well as past performance, are considered. Best value rewards the large majority of contractors who reliably do good work for the city on time, on budget, and with adequate staffing. The legislation maintains the 10% LBE bid price discount as we continue to support our local businesses. Legislation requires that departments establish objective and transparent criteria defining best value for a project, and that those criteria be established in a public and transparent way before any RFP goes out to bid. In today's contracting process, unfortunately, given that we currently rely almost exclusively on lowest bid, there is little incentive for contractors to do an A-plus job. In fact, right now, there is a built-in incentive to cut corners for repeated change orders, for understaffing, even at times for walking away from a project before it's completed. Although most contractors do not cut these corners because they want to do a good job, and they do a terrific job, unfortunately, some contractors do. Best value is not a new idea. Many cities and counties in California and across the country have implemented this system and are implementing it. And best value basically means that although bid price will always be incredibly important, that a bid could be the lowest priced bid and still not be the best value if, due to change orders or delays or understaffing or not completing the job, the costs end up escalating. We are going to be investing tens of billions of dollars in the coming decades on infrastructure work in San Francisco. We are engaged in unprecedented infrastructure investment in this city, on our roads, our sewers, our water systems, our parks, our health facilities, our public safety facilities, our transportation systems. And we want to create every incentive for contractors to do the best possible work in the safest and most efficient way, and best value will help to move us in that direction. For a large majority of contractors who are doing a great job, this is not going to have much impact. They will continue to bid, they'll continue to receive work, and it will all go well. But for the small number of contractors who are a problem, this will finally allow us to take poor performance, unsafe performance, inappropriate behavior into account when awarding contracts in the future. Both the civil grand jury and the Controller's Office have audited San Francisco's public works contracting process, and both have come to the same conclusion, that the time has come to move towards best value contracting. I want to thank President Breed, Supervisor Tang, and Supervisor Yi for their co-sponsorship. I also want to thank Andres Power and Annie Fryman in my office for their work on the legislation, as well as the City Attorney's Office, Yadira Taylor, and Nicholas King from DPW for working closely with us. I do have a small amendment that I've distributed that I formulated with Supervisor Peskin to indicate that for very small contracts under $1.5 million, best value would not apply. This is in line with other jurisdictions' approaches. There typically is a monetary threshold of around $1 million or so, and so we think that this is an appropriate threshold here as well. And so, colleagues, I ask for your support of the amendment and of the underlying item, which I think is a significant step forward in reforming and improving our public contracting process. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Yi.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. I want to thank Supervisor Wiener for bringing this forward, and I'm a happy co-sponsor of this particular legislation. I just want to say, well, also I'll be supporting the amendment, of course. I think it's due time that we actually look at this and do this. What I've seen over and over again when I was on the school board for 8 years, there were contractors. Many of the contractors actually were doing the work, but there's a percentage of contractors that over and over again somehow get the winning bid and ends up doing a lousy job, basically. And a lot of times we end up actually spending more money than any of the highest bidders because of the going back into the redoing some of the work that wasn't done, and having somebody come in to take the place of these contractors. So by preventing something that could be disastrous in the long run, I feel like the city's going to save money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. I'll switch to English. I actually think this makes a lot of sense. But I actually have heard more from small contractors who have difficulty getting bids rather than the other way around. And I'm really worried that this new structure could create some disadvantage for local business enterprises. And with that doubt in mind, although I think the rationale sounds very, very reasonable, I've always also thought that it's important to consider other factors besides low bid. I don't think enough work has been done to actually help LBEs work with our existing system to think that we're going to change the system over on them in a way that will be probably even more incomprehensible. So I will not be supporting, but I understand the value that is being projected with this ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Avalos. And so Supervisor Wiener had made a motion for an amendment. Is there a second to that? Seconded by Supervisor Marr. And we'll go to roll call for item 8 then. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry.
And so, Madam Chair, Supervisor Wiener made that motion, and Supervisor Marr seconded, and yes, you took that without objection?
We'll take the amendment without objection. But if on the overall item as amended, if we could take that roll call, please.
Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yi.
Aye.
Yi, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
No.
Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos. Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no with Supervisor Avalos in the dissent.
This ordinance is passed on first reading as amended. Madam Clerk, if you called item 9, please.
Item 9 is an ordinance to appropriate approximately $4.1 million in surplus revenues, de-appropriate approximately $20.6 million from permanent salaries, fringe benefit, expenses, and non-personnel services, and to appropriate approximately $24.7 million to overtime in the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Emergency Management, the Fire Department, Public Health, and the Public Utilities Commission, and the Police Department for operating budgets in order to support the department's projected increases in overtime. This vote requires a two-thirds vote or 8 votes pursuant to Charter Section 9.113.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. This one is a really challenging one for me. I understand that we're not doing our supplemental appropriation based on general fund reserve, but cost savings within the departments and revenues within the departments, as with the fire department. But it also calls into question this ordinance that why do we have such large cost savings in our department budgets? Police alone is $8 million. And every year in the budget process, we go through trying to comb through and find these surpluses. And it looks like we are actually getting not getting the biggest bang for our buck in that process of scrutinizing the budgets. I'd like to ask the Harvey Rose, the budget analyst, a couple questions.
Mr. Rose?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Supervisor Avalos.
So thank you for your report. I'm actually, I've been in the budget process on the budget committee many years, chaired the budget committee in the past. The last couple of years, I have not been on the budget committee, but I've been here every night at the last night where the budget committee finalizes the budget. And there's this time when all of our offices are trying to find, the silver bullet to find magic money. And it looks like, when we get to the tail end of the year, we have all this magic money that appears in our department budgets. $8 million in the police department is an incredible amount of money to me. Could you summarize by department what we were seeing in terms of cost savings and how those cost savings that are in the supplemental relate to recommendations that you had made last year in our budget process?
Madam President, members of the board, Supervisor Avalos, let me make a general statement first, and I'll respond specifically. Each year, when we go before the Budget and Finance Committee, we tell the Budget and Finance Committee that the recommendations that we make for salary surplus, salary savings are conservative, reasonable. Departments argue against that, and then it's up to the Budget and Finance Committee, and they certainly consider our recommendations and consider what the department says. But historically, the salary savings that are achieved in the city and county of San Francisco, where you have employees totaling approximately 30,000 employees, and you have a $9 billion budget, there is going to be a lot of attrition. And historically, that attrition has exceeded both the mayor's estimates as well as the budget analyst's estimates. So that when we make our recommendations, we try to adhere to the board's policy that our recommendations should not impact service reductions, and that is why we make conservative recommendations. But we always go into the Budget and Finance Committee basically knowing that our recommendations will not result in any service impacts, and the probability is that the departments will have money left over.
Thank you. So every year, our budgets from our different departments are padded then, is what you're saying?
I'm saying that historically, there has been significant savings in excess of those amounts that we have recommended could be cut from the budget. And those amounts are used for supplementals like this, as well as used to balance next year's budget, where the controller takes any surplus funds and uses that as a source of funds for next year's budget. But yes, Supervisor, I believe that there are significant savings in almost every budget that I have seen over the years.
So last December, we had a hearing on the Super Bowl. We were trying to get a sense of what the cost was going to be to the city to the city departments, police department, MTA, DPH, Rec and Park, what the cost was going to be to the city, and no one could tell us what that was going to be. And then later in January, we got a figure that appears to be about $4.5 million less than the actual expenditures that happened. And there was no line items in the budgets of these departments to say what the costs were going to be for the Super Bowl. But yet, when it comes down to it, our overtime costs were dramatic, and our increased costs for the Super Bowl events were dramatic. And I just... I want to make sure that, you know, I think I have no choice but to vote for this, because if we don't support, we have a hole in our budget related to overtime. But the bigger hole is like how we can actually go through our budget process in the coming year to make sure that we can be much more strong about not accepting, not to be much less conservative than we have been to make cuts in these departments where they can't just squirrel away money to be able to make their own initiatives like the Super Bowl that actually have huge impacts on everyday San Franciscans, neighborhoods that are far from where these events occur, lose out, while the neighborhoods or the financial district gets to get a lot of money from tourism and people spending money at these events. This is a clear example of how our city has done more just to support the top 1%, the NFL corporations, the big hotel chains, and left our neighborhoods out. And I feel like this really stinks to have to vote on this kind of thing.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, then let's go to roll call vote.
On item 9, Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener. Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
I changed my mind, no.
Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, no. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
No.
Peskin, no. There are 8 ayes and 3 noes with Supervisors Avalos, Kim, and Peskin in the dissent.
This ordinance passes on first reading.
Madam Chair,
sorry?
Madam Chair, that is a 9-vote threshold. Excuse me, that's an 8-vote threshold. Thank you.
Yes.
My apologies.
This ordinance passes on first reading.
Can we?
I'm sorry? Supervisor Campos.
I'd like to make a motion to rescind that vote.
All right, motion to rescind. Is there a second to that? Seconded by Supervisor Marr. All right, so Madam Clerk.
On item 9, Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener. Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
No.
Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
No.
Campos, no. Supervisor Cohen.
No.
Cohen, no. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. I'm sorry, can you repeat? Thank you. Kim, no. Supervisor Marr.
No.
Marr, no. Supervisor Peskin.
No.
Peskin, no. There are 5 ayes and 6 noes with Supervisors Avalos, Campos, Cohen, Kim, Marr, and Peskin in the dissent.
This ordinance fails on first reading. Madam Clerk, if you could please call items 10 through 12 together.
Item 10 is a resolution to approve a lease between the City and Bank of America North America for automated teller machines at the domestic terminals 1 and 3, with a $365,000 minimum annual guarantee for the first year of the lease and for a 5-year term, complete with 2-year option to extend at the sole discretion of the Airport Commission. Item 11 approves a lease between Bank of America North America and the City for automated teller machines at the International Terminal with a $270,000 minimum annual guarantee for the first year of the lease and for a 5-year term, complete with 2-year option to extend at the sole discretion of the Airport Commission.
Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about item 10. My understanding is that Bank of America is a company that is headquartered in North Carolina. And I was wondering if there's someone here who can respond to that. If that is the case, I'd like to continue this item to our next board meeting because I'd like to know more about what this company has done relative to the anti-LGBT law that state has passed. We have taken steps to ban travel to that state. And I think that if we are doing business with a company that is headquartered out of the state, that there are certain things that we need to know about that company. So I'm wondering if there's anyone here from the airport or who knows the answer to that question.
Before someone comes up, or if anyone's available, let's go to Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and Supervisor Campos, thanks for raising the issue. As I think you know, we have currently pending legislation to ban the city from entering into contracts with companies that are headquartered in states that pass anti-LGBT hate laws. That is working through the legislative process right now. As I understand it, Bank of America has signed on to a letter and been very vocal against this law. That is what I know. I can't speak for the airport or for Bank of America, but that is the information that I have. Of course, it's all of our hope that this horrible law gets struck down and is wiped off the books sooner rather than later.
Well, my understanding is, and unless I hear anything to the contrary, that it is a North Carolina company. And so with that understanding, I'm going to make a motion to continue this item to the next board meeting so that we can find out more information about all of those things that have been raised.
All right, Madam Clerk and also Supervisor Campos, if I may suggest that we continue items 10 and 11 and not 12. Given that those are the only two concerning Bank of America.
That's great.
Okay, so I saw a second from Supervisor Peskin, and if we could take that without objection to continue items 10 and 11.
To the May,
to the May
24th meeting.
That's correct. And so we'll let's go to roll call for item 13 then. I'm sorry, 12.
And so item 12 is a resolution to retroactively approve and authorize the execution of a facilities lease agreement between the City and China Airlines Limited for Cargo Building 648 on Plot 10 for $5.9 million in an estimated rent for a 3-year term through April 18th, 2019, with one 3-year option to extend. And so on item 12, Madam Chair.
Roll call, please.
Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener. Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos. Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
This resolution is adopted. And now that it is about 2:30, let's go to our recognition of commendations. And first up, we have Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it is my honor to call a pretty amazing lady. I hope she's in the audience. Gladys Juergens. Ms. Juergens, if you can please come up. I know that we have the entire office of Treasurer Jose Cisneros that is probably virtually here. And if they're not here, they are watching on SFGov TV. Gladys Juergens is retiring this week after 34 years of service at the San Francisco Treasurer's Office. At 93 years old, Gladys never misses a single day of work. She is truly the heart and soul of her taxpayers' assistance team. For many years, her friends in the office have taken turns driving her to and from work and making sure that she is well taken care of. Every inch of her cubicle is covered with pictures and mementos of her colleagues, their children, and their families. Before I present this award, and of course it makes sense that this would be someone who lives in Bernal Heights in District 9, I wanted to give our treasurer, Jose Cisneros, the opportunity to also say a few words, but I know that my entire office and I are in awe of Gladys Juergens and can't imagine the city continuing to function without her. So, Treasurer Cisneros.
Thank you. Welcome, Treasurer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Supervisor Campos, for those lovely words. And thank you to all the members of the board for honoring our dear, dear colleague, Gladys. As you mentioned, Gladys is the heart and soul of our Taxpayer Assistance Unit. She's been serving the people of San Francisco for 34 years, and She has also found time to be the Treasurer's Office point of contact for the Fire Department Holiday Toy Drive each year. As you mentioned, she's beloved by her colleagues in the Treasurer's Office, and at 93 years old, Gladys is an inspiration to all of us. We can't imagine the Treasurer's Office without her. On behalf of everyone in our office, Gladys, we love you, and we hope you'll come back and visit us often. I'd like to invite Gladys up to say a few words.
Well, all I want to do is thank all the people. It's been a wonderful 34 years, and I'll always remember it. Everybody's been so kind to me. There hasn't been one person I haven't liked or they haven't liked me. I've met a lot of people, young, old. I had my board full of pictures of children, co-workers, and everything. I really will miss my job, but I think 93 is time to move on.
All right, congratulations, Ms. Jurgens. Thank you for your service to our city. At our next commendation, we have Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to be honoring a man that many of you know, Vince Harris. Where's Vince? Please come on up to the podium. Please give him a round of applause. So colleagues, today it's my pleasure to honor Vince Harris. Vince Harris is the current Director of Capital Programs and Constructions for the SFMTA, and he is retiring this year. Mr. Harris's career expands 35 years in transportation. He worked in both the public and private sectors on transportation issues, including being responsible for the delivery of a $3 billion capital improvement program in Washington, D.C. Mr. Harris also served as the executive director of the Stanislaus Council of Governments and the executive director of the Alameda County Transportation Authority. Mr. Harris holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Pittsburgh and a Master of Public Administration from Cal State East Bay. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Harris for all of his hard work and service to the city and county of San Francisco. His dedication has been critical to ensuring that we deliver on many of the important capital projects that help improve our transportation system, as well as provide a better service to all San Franciscans in every corner of the city. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your work, and we absolutely wish you the best of luck in your retirement. Don't forget about us over here.
Supervisor Cohen, thank you so very much. Madam Chair and members, I thank you so much for this recognition. I really appreciate it. Our division is responsible, I think you know it, at SFMTA for the delivery of capital projects. I often say that all capital projects have some problems, but the true test of character is how we resolve those problems. At our division, we try to resolve them together. Together often means working with you, the community, and other agency divisions to come up with what we would hope is a solution that is fair, equitable, and of course solves the problem. I want to thank this board for supporting and challenging me and my staff at SFMTA to do our very best in delivering quality projects for this great city. My experience is somewhat unique, as the member indicated. I actually was at the agency, left the agency, was invited back to work another term, and I'm very proud of that. And my return has actually given me an even greater appreciation for our work and this great city. I thank you for this acknowledgement. For me, honestly, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to serve.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Harris. And our next commendation will be from Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. So, colleagues, I have the great honor of recognizing someone today who's retiring after 30 years of service to the city of San Francisco, someone that I've gotten a chance to work very closely with over the past few years, and that's Peter Alpert. Peter, are you here? All right, Peter. So I first got to meet Peter and work with him in connection with the America's Cup. And say what you will, and we fought about the event itself, but in terms of District 2, the America's Cup was very impactful in terms of traffic and so forth. And oftentimes we go to community meetings and have to work alongside or compensate for things that other people say. Peter was just unbelievable. I mean, he's the only person I've ever met that actually puts residents and neighborhoods at ease, had the most amazing way about him. And together we've worked now on a number of things since then, and is, to me, one of the most amazing city employees that I've come across in my few years here at the board. And so I just want to recognize him today. I will talk about a bit of his background. He was head of planning for BART's West Bay line and station area, worked at our San Francisco Transportation Authority, our CTA here, as well as the planning department. He is retiring as director of planning for the MTA right now, where he works on a number of initiatives, and I'm sure with most of our offices around sustainability, corridor and area studies, development-related planning, environmental review, and so forth. He worked on the America's Cup, Super Bowl 50, our bid to host the Olympics in 2024. He's worked with my office on the Lombard Street Safety Plan. Has been responsible for our bicycle plan here in San Francisco, worked with our commuter shuttle regulations. The list goes on and on. Peter, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you, just on a very personal level, but also on behalf of all of us. I think it is a rare breed and a rare instance that we get to interact, at least from my perspective, so closely with someone that does such an amazing job and really makes our lives easier all the time. And I just want to thank you. I can't believe you're leaving and so forth, but well-deserved. I look forward to hopefully still seeing you on Sundays and Mass once in a while. But thank you for your service. Thank you for working so well with my office and for all the residents inside and outside of District 2. We're going to miss you a ton. The city's going to miss you. But really, thank you for all of your years of service.
And before we get to your remarks, we're actually going to go to Supervisor Wiener first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Peter, I know we're all really sad that you're leaving, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent you as a District 8 resident. I know, you have been in a lot of ways just I won't say a jack of all trades, but I say that only in the most positive way, that whenever something, a difficult project that doesn't necessarily neatly fit into a given silo has to happen, you're the guy that can come in and get it done. So when we see an explosion of development and population in eastern San Francisco and along the waterfront, it's you who comes in and plays such a key role to make sure that we're actually thinking about the future and how in decades to come we're going to have enough transit infrastructure to get people around. You've never shied away from taking on these really long-term important planning exercises and responsibilities that don't always get the headlines or the glory, but you've always been able to help guide our transportation function in the right direction. And I know you're going to be badly missed. I'm sure you won't be going far, and I'm sure you'll be available for consultations to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. But I just want to say thank you for your service. And I know that a lot of the work you've done, the seeds you've planted, are going to bear tremendous fruit in the future in terms of our transportation needs. So thank you.
Thank you. And Supervisor Cohen has a few words to share as well.
Thank you. I have very few brief words. I just want to thank Peter Albert. This man has been absolutely incredible to the residents of District 10. You heard about his professional experience and his breadth and depth of knowledge, but he's got a wonderful soul. He's a tremendous asset to the MTA. He's taught me a lot personally and as well as professionally, and he's helped me redefine what a good leader is. And one of the key things lessons that he taught me was to listen to people and always remember the experience that the person that you're talking to or interacting with, the experience that they're walking away with. And you always want it to be a positive interaction, a positive experience, so that the work that interaction will produce will be positive. And I want to thank you for our interaction. It's been a positive one, has had a positive impact on my life and my career professionally. You will be greatly missed. I hope that you will still remain involved and you remain in the city. And I'm grateful for the projects and the time and effort that you put in helping to figure out many transit conundrums all the way. And I appreciate you always including the Bayview community and Visitation Valley and really extending a caring ear and your level of thoughtfulness and trying to help us figure out our transportation needs and how we can begin to really solve some of the challenges that exist. So I'm forever grateful and truly indebted. And on behalf of all of my constituents, I just want to say thank you very much, and we will miss you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. And I'll just add lastly that I'm very shocked to hear that you're retiring. You're way too young to be retiring at this moment. But I want to thank you for your service. And it really is a huge loss for us to have you leave. I really appreciate how anytime we approach you with a problem that you've not only thought about it, but you've thought 10 steps ahead. And it's always been really wonderful talking with you because your brain is just problem solving all the time. So I just want to thank you for everything you've done here for San Francisco and wish you all the best in your retirement. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Supervisors. I'm a little overwhelmed about this. I'm a little overwhelmed. I feel like a lightweight compared to Ms. Sturgeon's, and I'm so happy to be honored the same day as my colleague Vince Harris. But when I look around this room, I realize I've had the benefit and the privilege to work in a project in every one of your districts. And that's the joy of the work I do. It might not have been with you. I've been around for a long time. I think Feinstein was our mayor, and Sue Bierman was my mentor, and Secretary Kavia and I worked together on many great projects in the mission. And what a joy it's been to be able to shape San Francisco and to try and solve problems before they became problems. With your support, I felt like I've had a great, I was going to say wind at the back, but that sounds too much like America's Cup. I think we don't want to talk about that, except for the fact that we proved that when people really put their minds to solving great problems before they become problems, they can be solutions. It's been a pleasure. I leave you with fantastic staff in the Planning Division at MTA. I think you're going to see great work ahead, and I will be around in San Francisco to pick up the Chronicle every once in a while and make sure that we're still on the right path. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Mr. Albert. And our last commendation will be from Supervisor Wiener on behalf of Supervisor Breed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, yes, this commendation is from President Breed as President of the Board of Supervisors. And although nothing can truly ever silence London Breed, having vocal cord problems is definitely a challenge. So we're relieving you of your responsibility for the moment. So, colleagues, today, this week is National Emergency Medical Services Week, May 16th to the 21st, which brings together local communities and medical personnel to honor the dedication of those who provide the day-to-day life-saving services of medicine's front line. San Francisco will be recognizing the emergency medical services community with several special events throughout the week, honoring those who have dedicated their lives to saving lives. One of these special events is the annual EMS Awards, an awards program that identifies providers who have provided outstanding emergency medical services to San Francisco. The awardees are nominated by their peers for a variety of EMS, including emergency medical dispatch, field medical response, hospital medical service, community service, and the Raymond Lynn Excellence in EMS Award. Today, during the National EMS Week, on behalf of President Breed, I would like to recognize all who are dedicated to saving lives through the emergency medical services profession. It's important to acknowledge the amazing work that each of these individuals performs for our city. And in particular, I want to commend each of the 2016 EMS awardees whose contributions have gone above and beyond, and who include Dawn Mahoney, San Francisco Department of Emergency Management Public Safety Dispatcher, who's receiving the EMS Dispatcher Award for 22 years of outstanding performance as a dispatcher and dispatcher trainer. Let's hear it for Dawn. And then Jared Cooper, EMTP, and Mark Santos, EMTP, with the San Francisco Fire Department, meaning paramedic, who are receiving the EMS Field Provider Award for their performance in multiple EMS roles, including how they responded to the 2015 Union Square tour bus accident, and for their leadership in EMS responder trainings. Let's hear it for Jared. And then Dr. Claude Hemphill with the University of California, San Francisco, who's receiving the EMS Hospital Provider Award for exceptional support of EMS providers caring for patients with neurologic emergencies. Let's hear it for Dr. Hemphill. Then Jason Mitchell with 24-Hour Fitness, San Francisco, who's receiving the EMS Community Services Award for helping two individuals who experienced life-threatening emergencies at the San Francisco Health Club facility where he works. Let's hear it for Jason. And then finally, Sharon Kennedy, RN, EMTP, with the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center, who's receiving the Raymond Lim Excellence in EMS Award for a career spanning 2 decades, resulting in innovations to the benefit of the greater San Francisco EMS system. Let's hear it for Sharon. President Breed and I are proud to recognize each of you for your dedication to saving lives. So come on up.
Congratulations to all the honorees. So that concludes our 2:30 special accommodations. Again, congratulations to everyone who is here today. So now, Madam Clerk, if we can go back to our agenda and call item 13.
Item 13 is a resolution to authorize the controller to enter into the Ninth Amendment of a software maintenance agreement with Cogsdale Corporation for perpetual software maintenance services for the controller's financial accounting and management information system and extending the contract term through June 30th, 2019 for a total contract amount of up to $1.8 million.
Thank you. If we could take the same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk, if we call items 14 and 15 together, please.
Item 14 is a resolution to declare the intent of the city to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of future bonded indebtedness to submit an application and related documents to the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee to permit the issuance of residential mortgage revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $56 million for 1101 Connecticut Street, also known as Potrero Block X. And item 15 is a resolution to authorize the issuance and delivery of multifamily housing revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $16 million for the purpose of providing financing for the acquisition and rehabilitation of a 50-unit multifamily residential rental house project known as Columbia Park Apartments.
Let's take the same House, same call. Without objection, these resolutions are adopted. Madam Clerk, item 16, please.
Item 16 is a resolution to reauthorize the issuance of tax-exempt and taxable lease revenue commercial paper certificates of participation in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $250 million to finance the acquisition, construction, and rehabilitation of capital improvements and capital equipment, authorizing the replacement of the existing credit facilities in the amount of $150 million.
Take the same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted. Item 17.
Item 17 is a resolution to approve an agreement with South Beach Marina, Inc. to preserve 101 affordable housing units at South Beach Marina Apartments in an amount not to exceed approximately $59.3 million.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim?
Thank you, Chair Tang. Today, I am really excited to have this come before the entire Board of Supervisors and to be able to announce that in concert with the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, that our office has worked with our residents and our tenants and property owner to achieve a resolution to a potential housing crisis. And we've reached a resolution that will enable us to keep 101 District 6 households here in San Francisco in their homes. Last year, actually around this time, a number of residents from the South Beach Marina Apartments contacted our office because they had learned that their middle-income restricted units had expired and were set to go to market rate. For most of these households, who can make up seniors, small business owners, our everyday residents, this was an effective eviction. While many of them earn good income, they do not earn enough to continue to afford to live in San Francisco or the neighborhood that they had lived in for decades. Several of our tenants are here today, and I want to acknowledge them for being here. Kay Kennedy, who is featured today in the Examiner, is one of our 73-year-old San Francisco residents that was at risk of losing her home. Maria Mistakis, who is one of our small business owners, is also a resident and someone who contributes daily to our city through her public service work. And they had been living in this apartment complex for many years. Kay had been living there for over 25 years. And they made it clear to us that if these units went to market rate, they would not be able to stay here in San Francisco. South Beach Marina Apartments, located in the former Rincon Point South Beach redevelopment project area, was built with mortgage revenue bonds in 1985, which resulted in the construction of 414 dwelling units. Over 25 of these units were deed restricted to middle-income households in exchange for the issuance of these tax-exempt mortgage revenue bonds. However, the restriction was left for only 21.5 years until the mortgage revenue bond financing had ended. Now, more than 20 years have passed, so those restrictions are no longer in effect. And because the mortgage revenue bond financing has ended, the owner is no longer obligated to provide these below-market rate units. This agreement permanently preserves 101 affordable housing units at South Beach Marina Apartments and prevents the displacement of our neighbors. These 100 There have been 190 units removed from protected status in the district that I represent over the last 10 years. This is the fewest number of units removed from protected status in any district. However, without the solution presented today, there would have been an additional 101 units removed from protected status. I want to recognize the tenants who have spent over the last year organizing, raising awareness around this issue, and working very patiently with our office and the Mayor's Office of Housing. If not for their advocacy and their voice, I'm not sure we would have achieved the resolution that we were able to get to today. And I also want to recognize the Mayor's Office of Housing because they came up with, 20 plus proposals to figure out how to make this work because they cared so deeply about making sure that we were not pushing out middle class households here in San Francisco. I'm going to call, of course, April Veneracion Ang from my office who worked with this group as well as the District 6 Democratic Club for their advocacy and support of the tenants during this time, as well as James Tracy. Olson Lee, Sophie Hayward, thank you so much again for coming up with these creative ideas that will help save these units. And today is really a big victory, I think, for our city. 101 households is nothing to cough at, and I'm just so glad that I will be able to continue to call you all my neighbors here in the South of Market, and that we can continue to do work together to strengthen our city. Board of Supervisors, colleagues, I do ask for your support of this today.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. And colleagues, if we can take this item, same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted. So now we are at our 3 p.m. Special order, and the first one that we have here is a conditional use appeal for 1066 Market Street. So Madam Clerk, if you could please call items 21 through 24.
Items 21 through 24 comprise the special order at 3 p.m. for a public hearing of persons interested in the certification of a conditional use authorization for the 1066 Market Street proposed project issued by the Planning Commission March 17, 2016, to allow additional square footage above the base floor area ratio for dwelling units that will be affordable for the life of the project to households whose incomes are within 90% of the area median income. Item 22 is the motion to approve the Commission's decision. Item 23 is to disapprove the Commission's decision approving the conditional use authorization. And item 24 is the motion to direct the preparation of findings.
Thank you. It is my understanding that both parties to this appeal have agreed to continue the hearing, and we'll go to Supervisor Kim to elaborate.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make a motion to continue this item to Tuesday, June 28th. We are still working out all the final deals of settlement in terms of the appeal of the conditional use authorization.
Thank you. So Supervisor Kim has made a motion to continue this at June 28th and seconded by Supervisor Peskin. And now if we can go to public comment on this motion to continue. If any members of the public wish to comment on this, please come forth. Seeing none, public comment is closed. And if we could take that without objection, then these items will be continued to June 28th. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if we can go to our second 3 p.m. special order and call items 25 through 26.
Pursuant to a motion number M16-046, approved on April 19, 2016, the Board of Supervisors will convene in a committee of the whole for a public hearing to consider objections to a report of assessment costs submitted by the Director of Public Works for inspection and or abatement of blighted conditions. Item 26 is the resolution to approve the report of assessment costs submitted by the Director of Public Works.
So as our clerk has stated, colleagues, today our committee of the whole is being conducted to consider objections to a report of assessment costs submitted by our Director of Public Works for inspection and or abatement of blighted conditions ordered to be performed by the Director pursuant to our administrative code. And so first, we will open this hearing and we will hear from the department.
Good afternoon, President Breed and members of the board. My name is John Riley, and I'm here with Phil Galley representing the Department of Public Works, the Graffiti Unit. Chapter 80 of the Administrative Code, the Community Preservation and Blight Reduction Act, requires that property owners maintain their property in a safe and blight-free condition. The code requires Public Works to inspect graffiti and notify property owners to make corrections. In cases where property owners refuse to correct the condition in a timely manner, the city has to perform the required corrections and assess the cost through the tax roll. it is the obligation of the property owners to maintain the property free of graffiti and blight. The majority of graffiti complaints come directly from the public via 311. Property owners are notified by a physical posting on their property as well as a notice by mail and are given 30 days to abate. Properties on commercial corridors are subject to a 15-day notice. Accompanied with the mailed notice of violation are photos of the graffiti to indicate the extent and the location of the graffiti on the property, and a frequently asked questions sheet with all of the information on how to reach the office. The notice explains the process for requesting a hearing as well as the way to contact the graffiti unit or to request an extension. If the graffiti remains on the building after 30 days, a blight notice is posted. The property owners are again notified and are allowed another 15 days to abate. If they do not remove the graffiti, contact the department within 45 days or request a hearing. Public Works will proceed with the required corrections and bill the property owner. If the invoices for the blight inspection fee or blight abatement are not paid, it will be submitted to the Board of Supervisors for assessment on the property tax bill. Most residents respond quickly when they find graffiti on their property. They respect the ordinance and follow through when notified. Property owners and merchants understand the importance of removing graffiti quickly and to send the message to the vandals that they will not allow graffiti to remain on their property. But failure to remove graffiti results in additional graffiti around the neighborhood. The department requests the board's approval for the list of the assessment of blighted properties.
Good afternoon, President Breed, members of the board. I'd just like to share some graffiti data with you. Last fiscal year, the Bureau of Street Environmental Services notified 8,250 private property owners for graffiti, in which 96.6% of those notified abated their graffiti. 1,142 notices of blight went out to private property owners, in which 91.9% of those abated within the time frame. That leaves the 63 in front of you today, which is approximately 0.55% of the total notifications that the city issued last year.
Thank you. And does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments for Department of Public Works Department? If not, then we will open this up for public comment. So if anyone would like to come and speak on this item, please line up by my left side by the windows. You will each have 2 minutes to speak. And I would just like to inform you as well that you will have the opportunity after public comment to go and speak with the Public Works staff individually outside the chamber. You will have some time to discuss your particular situation and then come back to the board chamber after all has been said and done and hopefully resolved. And then we will take up the action item. So with that, we're going to open this item up to public comment. Please come forth.
I am the owner of the business in 411 Grand Avenue, San Francisco, Chinatown, 13 years already, and I have all the time the problem with the graffiti. And I am tired of my gate is a metal gate in front, and it's already full of paint. It's so much. It's like I already 13 years. That try is no. I can do it like every day, paint every morning. That's just incredible. It's not fair for me just only to receive. It's like, this is, the rent is a lot. I know I have to deal every day with the graffiti, but it's not like, I have to pay. The city has to do something. That's why I am here, because it's not fair. Just this note. Every day I have to open the store and I have a note, like I have to paint. I paint today, and tomorrow I do the same thing. It's exactly, it's like thank you. This is what I have to work for me, as to say, to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on items 25 or 26? Okay, seeing none at this time, then this hearing has been held and will be filed, and we will reconvene as a Board of Supervisors. But as I stated earlier, colleagues, if we can give it looks like just one member of the public the opportunity to convene with our SF Public Works staff outside the board chamber and just see if you can come to a resolution, and then we will come back to you afterwards. So if we can do that, colleagues, without objection. All right. So Madam Clerk, if we could call the next item, please, which would be item 18.
Item 18 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to require the city to open and operate no fewer than 6 navigation centers within 24 months of the effective date of the ordinance, offering comprehensive health, mental health, and other services to homeless people, and moving homeless people off the streets into permanent housing or transitional or stable supportive housing that eventually leads to permanent housing through case management, social services programs, and the integration of other relevant city services.
Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I'm going to take a moment to read a part of an email that I received this weekend from a constituent, and this is what it says. Presently, there's a large homeless encampment on the west side of Harrison Street between 18th and 19th Street. It has grown to a size where it is hard to estimate how many people are there, perhaps a dozen more. Individuals have been there for nearly 3 weeks now. They have now set up cooking areas. They use the street and sidewalk as their bathroom, have bike parts coming and going of the tents and tarps. I had to step over bodies to walk on the sidewalk. I walked past a man outside a tent who was pouring some disinfectant over a scab forearm that had ballooned to twice its size. The smell of urine permeates the area. Is there anything to be done to address this? I read that because I'm reading email after email, hundreds of emails and calls like the one that I just read from my district, calling on the city to do something about the issue of street encampments and homelessness. I introduced the ordinance on the expansion of navigation centers because I believe that I would not be doing my job as District 9 Supervisor if I did not try to do something on this issue, and specifically to do something to address the encampments that are growing and have grown throughout my district and throughout the city. This is why I introduced this law, and this is why I believe that we as a board and as a city need to do everything we can to address this issue. That said, the mayor's newly appointed director of our new department on homelessness, Jeff Kusitsky, approached me yesterday to ask for a continuance of this vote. Let me say this. I had to think very hard about this because I do believe that action is needed, and that action is needed now. I have, nevertheless, agreed to a continuance with the understanding that a continuance is out of respect to Mr. Kusitsky and his new role, to give him an opportunity to get up to speed on the issues implicated in this legislation. But I want to be very clear. I believe that this legislation, as it currently is, has struck the right balance in terms of all the conflicting interests and needs that the city faces on this issue. I am proud of the amendments that have been made at the suggestion of Supervisor Peskin, of President Breed, and others, as well as the amendments that come from the people who do this work on the ground, so that we're not only addressing the issue of expanding navigation centers, but we're also, in a very permanent and real way, addressing the issues with the existing shelter system. I believe this law does that. I take Mr. Kusitsky at his word that he needs extra time to get acquainted with this piece of legislation, and I'm prepared to do that. But I'm prepared to move the item forward if this becomes about more than that. I believe, and I say this with all sincerity, that the people of San Francisco, the residents of District 9, the residents of every single district, do not want City Hall to delay further action. They will not tolerate that we push aside this issue for much longer. So with that expectation and that clear understanding, I hereby make a motion to move this, to continue this item to our meeting of June 14th, out of respect and deference to the new director of homelessness. So I make that motion and ask for your support.
Thank you. So Supervisor Campos made a motion, seconded by Supervisor Avalos to continue to June 14th. I'm sorry, and Supervisor Avalos is next.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Supervisor Campos for bringing this legislation forward and highlighting the huge concerns that have arisen in your district. And I heard a lot from folks as well who were really concerned about the encampments, especially along Divisadero. And a lot of those, I think, were as a result of people being moved from the area of the Super Bowl. So there are relationships that we have between other things we've had on today's agenda. I also want to thank you for continuing this. I think Jeffrey Kaczynski joining on our homeless office is a significant move, and I think he has been a great person grappling with homelessness and supportive housing for a number of years, and brings a great deal of expertise, and giving him some time to help with plans is very, very magnanimous of you, and I appreciate your doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. So, again, there was a motion to continue June 14th, and if we could take that without objection, this item is continued. Item 19, please.
Item 19, motion to direct the budget and legislative analyst to conduct a performance audit of the city's real estate division in 2016.
Thank you. If we could take the same house, same call. Without objection, this motion, this is a motion. I guess we take this motion as approved. Item 20, please.
Item 20, resolution to approve the addition of the commemorative street named Gene Compton's Cafeteria Way to the 100 block of Taylor Street in recognition of the 50th anniversary of the turning point for the civil rights movement for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, and intersex people, and in specific, the contributions of transgender women.
We'll take the same house, same call. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Chair. Today I have the honor of bringing forward this important memorial for our San Francisco community, in particular our transgender community. The 100 block of Taylor Street is a historic site a historic site where in 1966 an uprising by transgender women and others in the LGBT community stood up to unrelenting injustice. This brave group of individuals protested against discrimination in what is now known as the Compton's Cafeteria Riots, one of the first public displays of opposition to LGBT discrimination in this country and a precursor to the modern LGBT movement. Long vacated by the cafeteria, today the site is almost entirely empty as a memorial to the event. Only a small plaque exists to memorialize the site. This is why today I have brought forward this resolution to rename the 100 block of Taylor Street in San Francisco's Tenderloin neighborhood to Gene Compton's Cafeteria Way to commemorate this historic event in our great city. This resolution is especially important in wake of the state and local government legislation across the country aimed at stripping civil rights from transgender individuals. By creating a permanent memorial site for the Compton Cafeteria Riots, San Francisco can help remember our role in the civil rights of transgender individuals, and that we must continue to fight, that there's still a long way to go to acknowledge the bravery of these women who stood up for themselves. So, colleagues, I do ask you in joining me in supporting this historic street signage today. We look forward to the unveiling at the end of the Trans March of June of this year. And I just want to thank and recognize tremendously Felicia Flames, who has been working very hard to educate both the Board of Supervisors and community about this historic event over the last couple of years. Jasmine, our Trans March Coordinating Committee, Ray, Austin, Jordan, and many others who worked hard over the last years to bring this forward and get support from our wide community and from the neighborhood as well. I also want to recognize my co-sponsors, Supervisor David Campos, Supervisor Scott Wiener, and Aaron Peskin. I look forward to seeing you at the unveiling on June 24th at Trans March. This is an important part of our history and deserves to be recognized in our community and neighborhood.
Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Supervisor Kim and her office, as well as the members of the community who have moved this important, not just commemoration, but a moment of education forward so that we never forget those who came before us and those who really blazed a trail to make space for the modern LGBT movement and community. As good as things are for the LGBT community, at least in certain parts of the country, we know that we have much work to do, and we know that in the past so many people suffered because of the incredible discrimination and hatred and stigma and lack of understanding toward our entire LGBT community, but most specifically toward our transgender brothers and sisters. And our transgender brothers and sisters have taught us so much about what it means to stand proud and to fight under the most difficult and sometimes horrible of circumstances. And so this is a very, very important moment. It is also an important reminder that as many strides as we have made as an LGBT community, as many strides as the transgender community has made, we still have enormous challenges and hurdles. As we have seen recently in North Carolina and in other states, there are swaths of this country where at least the elected representatives are absolutely happy to try to cut out the entire LGBT community and most emphatically the transgender community from the full benefits of residency and citizenship. And we need to push back unbelievably hard to defend our community and to stick up for our brothers and sisters until we are at a point where LGBT people can live freely and openly and with dignity in every single square inch, not just of this country, but of this world. We must continue to fight. And what happened at Compton's Cafeteria 50 years ago was an incredible moment in teaching us how to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Campos.
I won't belabor the point. I just want to say as a gay man, I want to thank Supervisor Kim for putting this forward, as well as the co-sponsors, Supervisor Wiener, Supervisor Peskin. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor. You know, it's amazing how critical a role San Francisco has played in the issue of LGBT rights, and I think, you know, we all hear about certain things, and we know about Harvey Milk, we know about Jose Sarria, but I think the Compton Cafeteria has played a critical role, and it preceded just about anything else in the rest of the country. And I think that we should be very proud of the fact that you had these gender nonconforming, transgender queens and kings who played a role in that movement and in that very important occasion. And I think it's important to celebrate it and to acknowledge it and to make sure that our young people know about that history. So thank you, Supervisor Kim, for doing that.
I bet to do that.
Thank you. And now, colleagues, if we can take that item, same house, same call. I think I see, is Supervisor Farrell here? Yeah. Oh, sorry. All right, same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted. And now, Madam Clerk, we go to our committee reports, starting with item 27.
Item 27 was considered by the Land Use and Transportation Committee at a regular meeting on Monday, May 16th at 1:30 p.m. and was forwarded as a committee report. It's a resolution to approve an option agreement for the potential sale of the northern one-third of the Transbay Block 4, bounded by Beale, Howard, Main, and Folsom Streets by the successor agency to the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency to F4 Transbay Partners, LLC, for $45 million, and to make the appropriate findings.
Thank you. Do we have any opening remarks from Supervisor Kim? This is item 27.
Block 4.
No? Okay. Great, colleagues. Then if we could take this then same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted. Item 28, please.
Item 28 was considered by the Rules Committee at a regular meeting on Thursday, May 12th at 11 a.m. and was forwarded as a committee report. It's a resolution to urge the San Francisco County Transportation Authority in partnership with the Mayor's Office and the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency to develop a transportation expenditure plan to specify the use of revenues from a potential new half-cent sales tax for transportation for potential consideration for the November 2016 ballot.
Thank you. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Supervisor Avalos and Supervisor Marr for their co-sponsorship. This resolution simply moves forward and allows us to continue working on a half-cent transportation sales tax to meet the massive transportation needs of our city and our region in the coming years and decades. We have billions of dollars in unfunded capital needs in our transportation system, and the mayor convened the Transportation 2030 working group a few years ago that came up with a wonderful plan in terms of how to meet our capital gap over a 15-year period, including various funding sources, one of which was a half-cent sales tax to be dedicated to transportation needs. And so this is a step in that direction in terms of implementing one of the key recommendations of the Transportation 2030 Task Force. So we are continuing to work on this measure. I know there are a lot of conversations going on, and I'm confident we'll come to a good result where we will move forward with the sales tax for transportation, dedicated to transportation, with a great expenditure plan so that we can accomplish our goals. Thank you.
Thank you. So, colleagues, if we could take that item, same house, same call, without objection, then this resolution is adopted. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Colleagues, I'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote. I'm trying to think right here on item number 9, and that was regarding our OT expenditures.
Do we have a second on that motion to rescind? Seconded by Supervisor Breed, and we'll take that without objection.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So, colleagues, I understand the comments that were made around this item. Certainly, as your chair of the Budget Committee, I certainly do not want to have any padding going on in our budgets at all, and so very much look forward to a robust discussion this budget cycle around some of these items. And I want to thank Supervisor Campos, because it's he and I that put forward this ordinance that actually caused this vote to happen a number of years ago. And thank you for the dialogue around this. I think the one thing since we had this vote was working with our city attorney and our controller's office to understand the implications thereof. And if we do put this forward, I know they're here to answer any questions. If we do vote no on this, then these departments, including our first responder departments, will not have the ability this fiscal year to authorize any more overtime at all. I do think that sets a dangerous precedent in terms of just providing public safety for our residents. So I would ask my colleagues to reconsider this. I think some of my colleagues have expressed a desire to vote separately and potentially approve this for our fire department and Department of Emergency Management. So I'll let the comments go through here on the roster, but I might suggest separating the file and voting on those two departments separately than the other departments. And again, I will just say to my colleagues, you all have my commitment to work hard on this topic as it relates to this budget season and make sure this doesn't continue to be a practice to the extent it even has been over the past year.
Thank you. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you. I feel conflicted about this, to be honest with you. I mean, the reason why Supervisor Farrell and I introduced the ordinance that brought us to this point is because you had a situation where overtime was out of control, and the departments were basically increasing their overtime without really any oversight from the board. And so the idea is, they have to come to the board before they increase overtime. And of course, the intent was never to have departments respond to that by essentially providing padded budgets, but basically, knowing that they were asking for more than they needed as a way of actually circumventing the point. And so, I agree that we don't want to hurt, especially first responders and their ability to respond. But I also feel like, I'll be honest with you, I think that first responders in many respects, some of those departments, because they're first responders, don't have, in my view, haven't taken this issue of overtime as seriously. And I'll point to the fire department as an example. And in my district, I mean, the fire department has a challenge because we have in the mission all these fires and not really a satisfactory response from the fire department. So I'm not prepared to change my vote until there is more concrete action that actually addresses the point. So I will stick with my no for the time being.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. In the heat of the moment, I wanted to, I failed to express some of the nuance that I wanted to express on this item. I went through each of these departments according to the budget analyst report. And when it came to the Department of Emergency Management, that had incurred 18 resignations. I'm not sure what that was about, but it seemed like it was an unexpected expense that the Department of Emergency Management had to go through that resulted in their increase in overtime usage that had to be covered and filled. So I was actually prepared to actually make an amendment or to allow approval for my vote of the DEM portion of this supplemental appropriation. I also felt that the fire department is one that I could let go as well. And that was because we did see that there was an uptick in emergency response, and also the source of funding is not within the salary budget, but unexpected revenues that were for the fire department. The fire department also, we have been hiring or approving fire classes, but not to necessarily move down the use of overtime. And it has been a policy in San Francisco to use fire overtime instead of hiring new firefighters. And so I know that we just started to approve new classes, but I don't think we've gotten to that sweet spot yet on having sufficient staffing that would keep the overtime costs down. So I'm actually okay with approving the portion of this supplemental that's for DEM and the fire department. When it comes to the police department, I feel my position is still the same. I feel that this budget around salary savings was completely padded, and the committee did not do enough to really scrutinize this budget and to find cost savings. I also have been working with the Department of Public Health. Their costs in overtime have resulted in not hiring enough staff. I've had 2 hearings in the past couple years at the Budget and Finance Committee about hiring hiring practices within the Department of Public Health relative to the emergency hospital that's now being rebuilt or about to open. And I really feel that I've gotten a lot of lip service from the Department of Public Health about how earnest they are about hiring new staff, hospital staff. So I am not prepared to approve the overtime expenditure for the Department of Public Health. We also have the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department actually had these positions that were not hired. They had FTE positions that were approved, money in their budget that was approved, but they did not hire enough staff. Therefore, they had to use more overtime, and now we're trying to move salary staff funds over to cover the overtime. I think they just need to hire the staff they need rather than to use more overtime. So for those 3 departments, I'll be voting against, or I could support a continuance. But for me, I could go forward with DEM and fire on this supplemental.
Thank you. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you, and I'm glad we having an opportunity to have further discussion on this. I would actually, and I appreciate Supervisor Avalos acknowledging that overtime sometimes results from various causes, and not all of them are nefarious. And we know, as Supervisor Avalos mentioned, that, for example, the fire department has relied on mandatory overtime for many years because the department, through policy choices, shrunk. We're now restaffing it, but that's going to take time. The Department of Emergency Management has been terribly understaffed and has had various problems with people on stress leave and other needs or other challenges with staffing. And what that means is that sometimes when people call the police non-emergency number or even 911, they have to wait longer than they should because there are not enough emergency dispatchers. So I appreciate the recognition that for DEM and for the fire department, what's happening is not at all inappropriate. It's what is necessary under the circumstances to run these critically important public safety departments. I would like to know for our other departments, for example, for the police department and the Department of Public Health, what would be the ramifications on the street in real life for our communities if we don't approve this, and when that will take effect. We know that our police department is understaffed. We know that officers work overtimes, at times because we simply do not have enough police officers to walk beats, to do traffic enforcement, to do all of the other things that we need. Department of Public Health, obviously an important frontline department as well. So I would like to know what will be the real life in the neighborhood, in the community ramifications of not approving this, and when will that take effect? So I think that's important information. I don't know if there's anyone from the executive branch that can provide that information.
Is there anyone who's going to come and speak on this?
Supervisors, Nicole Elliott, Mayor Lee's office. I'm happy to have our budget director come speak to this item if you'd like to continue it until later in the meeting so that she can address that question after being advised by the city attorney on this process.
So it's later in the meeting today?
Yeah.
Okay, and we can get later in the meeting some information.
Okay, let's go to Supervisor Cohen next.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Wiener, I was going to suggest something similar, that we get some answers in from the budget director herself. I'm too concerned if we are, in fact, dealing with department heads that are padding the budget to accommodate overtime, that is something that we should genuinely be concerned about. Supervisor Avalos, I'm supportive of your separating out DEM and fire, and I think that it's important for us to look at what SFPD is doing with their particular budget. I am not quite sure how I will vote on when it comes to SFPD because I am uncomfortable potentially compromising overtime staffing levels that are needed on the streets inside District 10. So just wanted to be open on where I am on this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you. I am open to the suggestion that Supervisor Avalos made on fire and emergency management. On the police, I actually think we need more information on that. Because one of the questions that actually comes up with police is actually the issue of how we are deploying the staffing we do have. I think that there are legitimate concerns to be raised about it. It's not just hiring more police officers, but actually how are we employing those police officers? How are we deploying them? How many days are they working? I think that's something that we need to look at before we start hiring more. And the second point is the issue of civilianization. How many officers are actually doing jobs, desk jobs that should be done by civilians? And so could we actually get more staffing if some of those officers were actually sent out to walk a beat instead of being behind a desk? So I'm not prepared to change my vote on policing. I think that we still have more information on that.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Just to underscore the police department's budget, their overtime spending has fluctuated wildly over the past 10 years. In 2008, the year I got here in the Board of Supervisors. Their overtime budget was about $22 million. And then through the budget process in 2009, 2010, for that fiscal year, we brought it down to $12 million. They did not seek more money that year, I don't think. And then we brought it down again to about $10 million in 10-11. And then it started going up to $14 million and then $19 million, and now it's hovering around $19 million. And this supplemental and the salary savings of people who are not hired or whose salaries are not paid for is just like a backdoor way of increasing the overtime budget. And more than anything, we need to make sure that we've tapped down on that budget to make sure that it's not being abused. We need to make sure that once that budget's tapped down, that we're doing proper deployment rather than just giving a blank check for the department to deploy however they want to. And overtime is the way to actually make that stick.
Thank you. So at this time, then, I think I've heard a suggestion to continue item 9 to later in the meeting with more information. Okay? So I'll do that without objection. So now, if I have seen correctly, I believe that Public Works staff has returned. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam President.
So perhaps we can go back to items 25 and 26, and if we can have Public Works staff come up and explain what had transpired, if you'd reach an agreement with some of the members of the public who are here today. Public Works staff, please. Yes.
Representing the San Francisco Public Works. We went out in the hallway and conferred with the property owners that appeared before us, and we have 2 property locations that we have removed from the list of 63 properties. So the locations removed are 411 Grant Avenue and 999 Laguna Street.
Okay. Thank you. And you had a chance to speak with everyone who was here from the public?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, colleagues, are there any questions or comments from staff here? No. Seeing none, then are there any objections to accepting the amendments to the accompanying assessment report as described by the department? Okay. Seeing none, then let's take the same house, same call without objection. Thank you very much. So, Madam Clerk, if we can go to our next item, please, and I believe that is roll call.
Roll call for introduction. Supervisor Wiener, you're the first member to introduce new business, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Colleagues, today I'm introducing legislation to close a very glaring, what should have been a glaring and surprising hole in our rent ordinance, and specifically the fact that tenants who have federal rent subsidy vouchers from the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS federal subsidy program currently do not have rent control protection. Right now, if you are one of the several hundred HOPWA federal subsidy recipients, and these are low-income people with HIV, largely seniors. If you have a HOPWA subsidy, your landlord can raise your rent to market. You do not have rent control protections. This is something that we discovered recently. No one appears to have been aware of it. And when we learned of it, I think everyone was surprised. Our advocacy community was surprised. We were surprised. No one knew about this. We still don't know why the ordinance was drafted this way to exclude HOPWA recipients from rent protections. But we need to very quickly close this loophole. We know that we have many long-term survivors of HIV living in San Francisco, people who are aging, people who have gone to hell and back, who suffer mental trauma from their own health roller coaster, as well as having lost a significant portion of their social circle. These are people who cannot afford to move or to pay a dramatically higher rent, and we need to keep them stable in their housing. We do not need to have several hundred long-term HIV survivors in San Francisco become housing unstable and perhaps homeless. So this legislation closes that loophole, extends rent control, effective today to HOPWA subsidy recipients. I want to thank Supervisor Campos and Supervisor Breed, President Breed, for their co-sponsorships. I also want to thank the AIDS Legal Referral Panel for Bill Hirsch and Jamie Rush for working with us on this legislation. And colleagues, I look forward to moving this quickly through the board and to gaining your support. And thank you, Supervisor Cohen, for adding your name as a co-sponsor. Colleagues, the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Today I want to introduce a resolution in support of the Legislative Women's Caucus budget requests and legislative priorities of the California Women's Caucus there. So I just want to say that women in the workforce is an economic reality. In the U.S., more than 70% of the mothers work, and 40% of them are the primary financial provider. In order for families to have the ability to provide, they must have access to quality care and education for their young children. Since 2009, more than $1 billion have been cut, and less than half of that has been restored, despite our state's economic growth. The California Legislative Women's Caucus is calling for Governor Brown to invest and restore $800 million that will serve tens of thousands of children, prevent disruption of care for those children, and recognize the importance and professional nature of the work that our early educators deliver to our state's working families. Today I am submitting a resolution in support of the Women's Caucus $800 million budget requests and legislative priorities that will support quality care and education for our state's youngest children, and support working families and recognize the contribution of our early educators. And I want to thank Supervisor Tang for co-sponsoring this resolution. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Avalos.
Submit.
Supervisor Campos.
Submit.
Supervisor Cohen.
Submit.
Supervisor Farrell, who stepped out of... Okay, thank you. And Supervisor Kim.
Submit.
Supervisor Marr.
Thank you. Colleagues, today I'm introducing a resolution from the leadership of our Human Services Agency to proclaim May 2016, this month, CalFresh Awareness and Action Month. Thank you so much to Trent Rohr, the Director of HSA, and Susie Smith, his Deputy Director of Policy and Planning, for their leadership on strengthening our human services safety net. Our San Francisco Food Security Task Force testified last month at our board committees on the incredible work they're doing to eradicate hunger and food insecurity by 2020 in our city. They've been identifying the fact that 1 in 4 San Franciscans, that's over 200,000 people, is at risk for food insecurity or going to bed hungry, for example. Through my work as District 1 Supervisor and on a citywide level with a number of great grassroots community organizations, we've been targeting this issue. I wanted to thank Project Open Hand, San Francisco Marin Food Bank, Sarah Huck from the Richmond District Neighborhood Center, and many others who have seen the need for programs like CalFresh in our communities and the need to promote awareness of this program and to sign everybody up for it as possible to really address the issues of hunger and food insecurity in low-income communities. In District 1, we're trying to model intergenerational efforts with young people and seniors and people with disabilities to address the need, especially for seniors who live at home alone, who are often on fixed incomes and lack support. Also, last September, I participated in the Hunger Challenge, which was living on less than $5 a day, the food stamp amount, and experiencing firsthand, if only for a few days, the struggle that hundreds of thousands of people in our city live day by day, those that are food insecure. And I want to just say that as this month of May is identified as CalFresh Month, it's an honor to be a part of a broad coalition that's addressing these day-to-day issues of people. I wanted to thank Supervisor Peskin for introducing the Density Done Right legislation with our broad coalition, broad diverse coalition, San Franciscans for Community Planning, to really address the needs of affordable housing, not market-driven density, but community needs-driven density as we protect small businesses, try to create 100% of truly affordable housing, preserve our existing rent-controlled and affordable housing as well, and really look at tailored affordability levels of middle-income people and maintaining a public process as we do it. So I really thank Supervisor Peskin and the coalition. Lastly, I wanted to acknowledge two important events coming up. The San Francisco International Arts Festival opens on Thursday night, a dynamic, multi-ethnic, and very provocative arts festival. It's hosted at Fort Mason Center for the Arts and Culture and the Eyes and Ears Foundation. I wanted to thank the founder, Andrew Wood, for 14 years of this amazing festival. Back to Fort Mason, a venue that's perfect for it. Fort Mason used to house the People's Theater Coalition and Life on the Water in the 80s, as I was a young arts activist in those days. I wanted to say the festival runs for 3 weeks. Amazing bringing together of a global community of artists. I'll just name a few that I'm going to see, from poets like Jenny Lim to storytellers like Brenda Wong Aoki and Mark Izu, to pianists like John Jang, who has his Can't Stop Crying for America, Black Lives Matter performance, to flamenco dancers and comedians like Nato Green. There's a variety of different types of performers. Classical Revolution orchestras performing Beethoven to David Bowie performances. I also wanted to acknowledge that spoken word artists and theatrical artists like Eliana Lopez, the partner of Rosmir Karimi and Poder, performing, our elders like Avacha, to young performers like Melora Green, along with DJ Saki One, but amazing performances. Another one I'm looking forward to is Anthony Brown's Afro-Asian Asian American Orchestra performing Max Roach's Freedom Now Suite. I can't wait for this festival. It's coming up again beginning this Thursday for 3 weeks. If you want information, it's www.sfiaf.org. That's a San Francisco International Arts Festival. And lastly, Asian Heritage Street Celebrations coming up. It's the 12th annual here at the Civic Center, Little Saigon, on Saturday, May 21st. Props to organizer Tamiko Wong and the Oakland Asian Cultural Center. I've been at every single festival for 12 years since it started in Japantown, and moved around to the Sunset, to South of Market, to many other neighborhoods, but now it's settled here in the center of the city, in the Civic Center, Little Saigon area. For more information, it's from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, and it's www.asianfairsf.com. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Supervisor Marr, for talking about the 100% affordable option legislation, which we will discuss a little bit more next week. Today, I am also introducing a proposition for the November ballot to amend a previously approved bond measure, one that was passed many, many years ago in 1992, Proposition A of that year, the Seismic Safety and Affordable Housing Preservation Bond. This will be the first time that we have repurposed an existing bond to expand its existing uses. The original bond uses of seismic retrofitting and rehabilitation would be expanded without a new bond issuance to allow for the acquisition and rehabilitation of permanently affordable housing, including at-risk SRO hotels, large apartment buildings, and potential small sites. As we learned earlier this year, in the past 4 decades, San Francisco's low-cost residential hotels have dwindled by some 14,000 units, from 33,000 units to a little bit more than 19,000 units. In addition, fire and electrical malfunctions have devastated older rent-controlled housing stock throughout the city. For our low-income and working-class residents, particularly single adults, families, and older residents aging in place, rent-controlled tenants, this is the only option for permanently affordable housing in the city. With almost $150 million of the original $350 million from that bond still unissued through the market rate loan program, this is an opportunity to give nonprofits and private developers the opportunity to acquire these at-risk buildings for the benefit of the entire city. It won't raise taxes, but it will preserve our most precious housing stock by ensuring habitability, safety, and future preservation for existing residents. We're also introducing a financial award to an individual for providing critical information that has led to the reporting of underpaid property taxes. Thank you to our assessor recorder, Carmen Chu, for her work on that effort. And finally, I would like to adjourn today's meeting in the memory of Adolph Capro, who passed away in the middle of April. That concludes my roll call.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Madam Chair, seeing no other names on the roster, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Thank you. And now if we can go and open up for public comment.
At this time, the public may now address the entire Board of Supervisors for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board, to include the minutes and items on the without reference to committee calendar items 31 through 34. Public comment is not allowed when an item has been previously subject to public comment at a Board committee. Pursuant to the Board's rules, direct your remarks to the Board as a whole, not to individual supervisors, nor to the audience. Speakers using translation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify, and if you would like to display your document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV and remove the document when the screen should return to live coverage of the meeting.
Supervisors, my name is Francisco de Costa. I think y'all are not blind. Some of y'all have opened up your eyes. We have now in this city and county of San Francisco a black and brown unity. And I see some of you supervisors are focused on our seniors, the physically challenged, mentally challenged, but more needs to be done. This land, all of it, belongs to the Muwekma Ohlone. And as the weeks go by, some of you supervisors will learn more about this land, stolen from the Muwekma Ohlone. So I thank some of the supervisors who are working with me to give recognition to the Muwekma Ohlone. And for a very long time, I deferred from getting any authority from them to represent them, but now I will. And we have some crooks in this chamber who can speak about this, that, and the other thing, but when you go on the Ethics Commission, you can see the amount of donations they get. They are not here to represent the people, but to fill the campaign coffers. I was at Kaiser the other day and met a gentleman in his 80s, a Teamster, who sees me speaking here, and he appreciated what I do here. And there are many people at home who don't have a voice, but we have very few supervisors who have a heart to do the right thing. So you supervisors who are doing the right thing, you're on our side. And with our black and brown unity, and we'll bring the seniors and others together, we put the others on notice. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Of awareness of studies, we apply of that cultivation of management to anew of our people. Sage King's self-nature of mighty works would actualize of heavenly virtues on great worldly teachings, of inner cultivation for one's heavenly self-nature by the works of meditation and external great magnificent expansion for one's self-nature by pathway of holy mercy. One lives on the worldly people with a bright illuminated virtue on the great closeness in anew of our people. With origin of disciplines by law, one expresses joyful passion and mercy and uplifting of suffering by griffins to promote cheerfully of good deeds and to disregard prejudice in thinking. Worldly rescue also work on removal of falsifications and attainment of truthfulness. The world then would be a better place to live in. For the loving of the nation, the world, and of the people, we work hard to protect all of the good aspects of social value in maintaining a blissful kingdom for all. That requires the actualization of humanity in a meaningful way on the pathway of proper measure and good trust by intelligent self-nature, of critical reasoning in bright decision, as well as great establishment of holiness infrastructure to come before politics, education, and program pathway. May the Holy Truth prevail on the 4 C's for the perfect well-being for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Peter Alexander. Who should join us for the march against Monsanto to unite with true authority this 21st at the Embarcadero? Perhaps those who've suffered by means of gentrification. After all, we now know who can afford to live anywhere nice in this self-destructing corporation. They be but those who have conspired and made darn sure that our lives are completely wired and care not a whit if you've been evicted or fired. These are the four groups who have undermined labor, treating hard workers as dupes. They themselves have never labored or farmed, never done anything beneficial for others, and yet their lives seem financially charmed. Usurious bankers, warmongers, computer mind manipulators, Google, Facebook, Silicon Valley, and lawyers. It'd hardly be funny. They work not, yet command the most money. And they subsidize the massive destructive force of Uber to destroy the taxi union. And unions need now to support each other, for Uber is supported by your Mayor Lee, who with Feinstein and Govey Brown totally set up Senator Yee, who was demanding transparency, and also authored a chiropractic-supported bill which offered Californians a worthwhile healthy thrill. Under California Care, they could receive chiropractic instead of dangerous drugs. And with respect to the National Police Memorial and Acknowledgement Week, we do not need tasers. We need cops to buck up like Dirty Harry and stop working for the martial law corporation and lawyers. They all took an oath to the Constitution, which is exactly why labor and veterans and students need now act upon the given resolution and shut down the West Coast till D.C. and Wall Street be but toast, releasing the U.S. Constitution. The greatest warrior, the greatest contender, be spirit-based fighters with no limit to gender. The LGBT powerful as lions, which is why they be called the Pride. It's time on the 21st to join us for the wildest of rides.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Eileen Bogan, a Sunset Parkside resident. Here to read portions of a letter from the Terraville Parkside merchants, now known as POPs. This letter was sent to the clerk of the board, read at the Small Business Commission, read at the SFMTA board, and handed to SFMTA staff. And I quote, "The Terraville merchants continue to have serious concerns regarding the proposed El Terraville Rapid project. Those concerns include the loss of muni stops, transit-only lanes, installation of additional boarding islands, replacing stop signs with traffic lights, and relocation of business-serving parking onto adjacent residential streets. Besides the changes proposed in the project itself, the merchants continue to have serious issues regarding the outreach process. Both the scope of the public outreach and the number of general public meetings has been minimal. Also, there has not been a sufficient amount of time for people to fully understand all the long-range impacts of these changes. Therefore, the Terraville merchants are strongly urging the Board of Supervisors to assist us in addressing the above unresolved SFMTA issues, beginning with holding a board hearing on SFMTA Muni Forward matters. We believe these topics are of some urgency in order to avoid the unpleasant experiences encountered by merchants along Mission Street. Yumi Sam, President, POPs."
Thank you, Chair Tang, and all the cabal. My name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, 10 blocks, and less than 40 years from sea level. Rise to comment on validation. The universe has seen fit to endorse a number of my previous comments before you. In February, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration issued a ruling allowing a computer program controlling an automobile to be considered the driver. This is the death knell for big buses. Why invest millions in a single vehicle when you can have the same capacity across 10 or more robocars with no additional cost for pensions, vacations, or health care, and no need for set-asides to pay for the damage caused by careless humans? I've mentioned this very scenario before. Earlier this year, climatologists expressed alarm at the continuing acceleration of the melting of the Greenland ice sheet and the subsequent pulse of fresh water flushed into the North Atlantic. I've mentioned this scenario before. In the past, Member Kim personally validated my characterization of your collective behavior as managerial class negligence when she could not bring herself to view the violent consequences of her failed supervision. I've offered this observation multiple times. And finally, Member Wiener offered to sacrifice his future political career to avoid adding to the damage he's already done to the future of our beloved city and county. But no, that didn't happen. That was just a daydream. But he did admit that his housing policy was and is a failure, and that his transportation policy was and is a failure. And I've certainly mentioned that before. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My father went to Oakland Tech, so I have, and I lived in San Leandro, so I have connections here. Last week, the Chamber had a teachable moment about the important California law known as the Brown Act, which gives citizens the right to record public meetings. It's ironic that at the beginning of last week's meeting, the mayor, Ed Lee, referred to San Francisco as a First Amendment city because later during that meeting, I was unlawfully removed. But this isn't about me. It's about the rule of law and the dangers of supervisors selectively enforcing the rules. The rule of law is a fundamental principle. We can disagree about many things, but a look at the video that I posted online shows that a woman who appears to be with the activist group Casa Justa came over to intentionally violate my right to record the meeting, interfere with me, and including up to physically covering the lens of my camera and touching me. The Casa Justa activists created the problem, and then after I was removed, with me not in the room, Supervisors Avalos and Campos proceeded to insult and lie about me. Now, why was I punished and kept from recording when members of Casa Justa were allowed to violate the rules at least 6 times, standing, applauding, yelling, and intimidating me? Well, a quick look at their webpage and social media explains why this double standard existed. Casa Justa actively supports Campos, Avalos, and Eric Marr on their social media. And more significantly, 2 of these supervisors have direct connections with Casa Justa. John Avalos has hired one of their board members, and Gordon Marr, who's on their board, is the twin brother of Eric Marr. Supervisors are apparently confident they can let Casa Justa break the rules at will. Now, you're allowed to have political supporters and allies, but what you're not allowed to do is to allow those allies to break the rules and punish people you don't like. This is a very dangerous precedent for everyone. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Greetings, Board of Supervisors. I would like to express my appreciation for your approval of my position on the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee for the last 10 years as a survivor of a pedestrian collision 15 years ago and an advocate for the residents and people coming through the city. I come to you today to inform you in entirety and people here in the public that the City of San Francisco's Vision Zero traffic fatality group comprised of 4 members, Commander Ann Mannix, James Sahamiri from SFMTA, Devin Morris, and Leilani Schwartz, have determined to follow the policy established by the police department to only designate fatalities from traffic collisions that occur 30 days or under from the collision. So fatalities that have occurred afterwards are not being counted in the Vision Zero metrics of how many fatalities have occurred each year. It was 31 in 2014 and 31 in 2015. The reason I come to you is to inform you of this and to pass on to you electronically or in paper a memo from Leilani Schwartz where she says to me, effective April 14th in written memo, public document, and at the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee meeting last week, that they can consider writing an end-of-the-year report of all those who died over 30 days. But it is not a decision that they have made. I hope they are authorized to make that decision to inform the public of how many people died from a collision in San Francisco after 30 days.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I have to speak extremely fast. I was not here, first of all, last week when all the destruction was happening at City Hall. So I come back here to do my normal trade. I got deputies saying I couldn't come in the press room. They said that was the rules that was put together. Well, damn it, if there's some new rules, put them on the door. Okay, now I'm here to say, number one, I'm really upset with the Small Administrators Commission and coming to the Western Addition in the Fillmore, on the Fillmore corridor in Bath, Queen, going to be at 1300 Queen, Madam Queen, where there's so much corruption there, Madam Queen, where all the money's been filtrated, Madam Queen. I'm a little upset with that, Madam Queen. I'm also upset with she's being a commissioner there prior to her getting loans. But I'm also extremely upset because I am the czar of the out-migration, of the constant negligence of this administration of the black population. It's dwindled down to near existence. And where I, as a black man that's been in the media all these damn years, have been denied coming in there. And I'm sick and tired of this administration. My name is Ace, damn it. I'm the czar of the out-migration. Every department here to the administration, not one dime has been put in the budget since this administration on the out-migration, Madam Queen. You know why the black men, why we didn't get no money back then when the Lieutenant Governor Newsom, because the budget was in a default, $500 million. Now the budget, we up there in the billions. No item line has been for the blacks. And if you don't do that, I'm going to have to sue. My name is Ace. Madam Queen, you were on that committee. The only one took from it was Reverend Brown, and the black took the money from the, the hotel, and that's going to be investigated. So what the hell is going on in this city? My name is Ace, damn it. I'm the czar of the out-migration. I may look like whoever you want to call me.
Thank you.
I'm
Next speaker,
62
please.
years old, damn it. I got kids, they got kids, and my grandson got 3 kids.
Mr. Washington. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And Mayor Ed Lee, he knows me. I got pictures that he don't want me to publish.
Next speaker, please.
It happened in 2011 at Third Baptist. Probably the FBI was there. The FBI, they watching us now. They ain't going nowhere.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Did you watch and view it in the news you see about those dangerous killer bees in the city that you roam? You'll never be alone, and then, my friend, you'll see there might be buzzing bees. They're always buzzing here and there, and the bees in your district everywhere. If you ever look behind and don't like the city that you find, and you know what you'll do, you gotta be careful, won't you? And you're home for the district, please. You hide from the city buzzing bees in the city that you roam. And be careful in your city home. And hey, are you ready for the Mission Carnival Day? All night long, all night city long. Are you ready for the carnival coming your way? Hey, Carnival Day, yay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors, members in the audience, those in TV land.
Marijuana has been illegal circulated on California streets for decades. Now it's deemed a legal medication prescribed by physicians to provide comfort for those living in pain. Unfortunately, our youth have access to this drug. For long as I can remember, any person under the influence of any narcotic that induces drowsiness or otherwise might impair judgment is strongly cautioned not to operate heavy machinery. Heavy machinery includes vehicles too. It should be mandated that all physicians prescribing any narcotic to a patient be required to submit that patient's contact information to the Department of Motor Vehicle, who would then suspend that individual's driving privileges until such time they are no longer in need of having the use of any prescribed narcotic for their medical condition. This would reduce putting the public and pedestrian safety at risk. No one should be able to drive a vehicle smoking marijuana. Anyone stopped by SFPD for driving on the suspended license, per the vehicle code book, the police has the right to remove the license plates from that vehicle if it's registered to him or her and mail them in to the Department of Motor Vehicle, then impound the vehicle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Yolanda Jackson. I'm the Executive Director and General Counsel of the Bar Association of San Francisco. Thank you for having us here today. So why does BASF care about this issue? Well, it is our mission to champion access to justice and to promote humanity and to provide legal services to disadvantaged and underserved individuals in San Francisco. The purpose that I'm speaking of is the resolution that is before you that has to do with adequate funding for dependency counsel for children, largely in foster care. We believe that this issue is important to ensure justice and to serve the most vulnerable in our community, which are children, the poor, and the underserved. BASF worked very closely with Supervisor Cohen on this resolution, and we want to thank her and her staff for all of their hard work to get this resolution put forward. Equally important, however, to BASF is the fact that the state has a mandate to adequately meet its obligations under the law as outlined in Welfare and Institution Code 317, which states in part that children who are in temporary custody and detention of the juvenile court shall have a counsel appointed to them by the court and their parent or guardian in the event that it is determined that they cannot afford an attorney. Due to inadequate funding to pay for attorneys to provide these services, there is a real risk of organizations and programs closing their doors and no longer offering these services to children and their parents. Practicing lawyers are walking away from this work, and unfortunately, there's a real risk of inadequate representation of these children. There's also the racial disparity issue here, and it's really large in San Francisco. In San Francisco, the number of African American children in foster care is 10 times that of the African American population in this city. Although this disproportionality is highest in San Francisco, it is an issue all over the country. Allow me to put one finer point on what's troubling in San Francisco alone. In 2015, our dependency courts...
Madam Chair, the speaker's time has concluded.
May I request her to finish her last sentence, Madam Chair?
Okay. In 2015, San Francisco dependency courts served over 2,100 youth. 580 of those were new entries into the court system in 1 year. 47% of people in San Francisco dependency court are African American, against a 5.8% population of African Americans in San Francisco. That is a huge, huge disparity, and it's really troubling. And finally, from 2010 to 2015, funding for this program decreased by $747,000, with an additional $500,000 being slated to be cut for next year. If this happens, children and their parents will not have attorneys to represent them when they are at risk of not having a home to live in. And this Board of Supervisors should be applauded for considering taking this resolution on to send this message loud and clear to San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nancy Davis, and I'm one of the judges who are assigned to hear dependency cases in the Superior Court of San Francisco. I've been in the dependency court since January of 2013, and while it wasn't an assignment I sought, I have found it to be the most rewarding and most heart-wrenching of my over 13-year tenure on the court. I've sat in every division of the court and have come to believe that dependency is the most consequential work the court is called upon to undertake. What could be more important than our children and our families? Every day, I and my colleagues on the dependency bench throughout California must make decisions that have a profound effect on children and their families. Is a child at such risk that he or she should be removed from the home? Have parents made progress with the services ordered such that their children can be returned to them and the family reunified? If they've not made sufficient progress, should they be given additional time to do so? Or should their services be terminated now and a permanent plan put in place that addresses the best interest of the child, be it long-term foster care, legal guardianship, or adoption? If adoption is the recommendation, judges are called upon to decide whether the parent-child relationship should be permanently severed. In my more than 13 years on the bench, I have made no more consequential decision than that of terminating a mother's or father's parental rights. I depend on the experienced and talented attorneys who appear in my court to provide me with the information I need to make the best decisions I can. As one of them recently noted, judicial decisions are only as good as the evidence that informs those decisions. When attorneys do not have sufficient time and resources to conduct investigations and advocacy on behalf of their clients, the entire system fails. We are fortunate.
Judge Nancy Davis, thank you for being here, and we appreciate your expert comments. Could you finish with your remarks?
I will. Thank you. We appreciate the dedicated and experienced dependency attorneys who provide superior representation for our children and families who come before the dependency court. We need the assistance of these attorneys who've been paid far too little for far too long, and the result will be their departure and substantially reduced positive outcomes for our children and their families. I urge you to help us avoid this crisis by supporting the resolution before you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Judge Davis. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Jill McInerney, President of the Board of Directors and founder of San Francisco Council for Families and Children. I was a court-appointed juvenile dependency attorney practicing in this city for 15 years until this past year when I had to find other work. For decades, San Francisco has committed to and cultivated a culture of excellence in representing children and parents in this system. The juvenile dependency system touches San Francisco's most vulnerable families. Attorneys in this field face daunting tasks every day, charged with interviewing children regarding abuse and neglect, making independent decisions about children's physical and emotional safety, and investigating and putting on evidence regarding potentially false, yet sustained allegations from Child Protective Services. While the general public can easily understand the quality of a criminal defense attorney often makes the difference between a person's freedom or incarceration, it is equally true that the quality of a juvenile dependency attorney is often the difference between a child remaining in a seriously dangerous home environment and a child being permanently and baselessly plucked out of her home, family, and culture forever. An error in either direction is serious and will have consequences that endure in a family for generations. A few weeks ago, this body voted to fund attorneys to provide legal representation to children and families who have fled unknown horrors from their countries of origin to ensure that they have adequate legal representation. Today, we are talking about the silent crisis of our own children, families who have lived here for generations. The right to physical safety and family integrity should not and cannot be infringed upon due to cost, particularly not in a city of extreme wealth like ours. San Francisco has the moral responsibility to support and protect our children and parents. I urge you to pass this resolution to support full funding for Dependency Council, or at minimum, that no further cuts to our already hamstrung system be taken.
Thank you.
Supporting this resolution is
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Bonnie Gordon, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm here today to speak in favor of the resolution supporting sufficient funding for Dependency Council. I worked for HSA for several years as a protective services worker and as a supervisor, and I retired from HSA in 2009. While I was there, I often found it very helpful and even critical at times to have the assistance of panel attorneys. Most of the clients are people of color who live in poverty and are often way too overwhelmed to advocate for themselves. CPS is bogged down by laws and regulations and policies and procedures. The social workers work hard to help families and children, but their hands are often tied by the limited options available through the system. To give one example, one of my clients, a 16-year-old Native American boy who has since been diagnosed with schizophrenia, was unable to be stabilized in even the highest level of residential treatment. With the help of his attorney, he was then placed through a specially negotiated contract with a therapist foster parent with shadow services for additional support. While in that home, the boy was able to graduate from high school and learned many independent living skills. In another case since then, where I served as a private social worker, the mother's attorney requested that I provide therapeutic visitation between the mother and her daughter, who had been removed due to issues of neglect. The mother and daughter hadn't seen each other even once in the 4 weeks since the child's removal, because HSA had a contract with an agency that wouldn't be available to provide therapeutic visitation for at least another month after that. Research in child welfare has shown that frequent and regular visitation is the single most predictive factor in whether parents and children reunify. That agency never did provide therapeutic visitation, but in the meantime, because the visitation could be more flexible, because it wasn't constrained by that agency's policies, it was much more flexible.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Amina Abrams, and I oversee operations for the Unified Family Court in San Francisco. I'm not here speaking on behalf of the court, but rather as a native of San Francisco and a citizen. I'm not going to restate what has recently just been stated by my colleagues and my friends. Rather, I want to talk about the simplistic realization of what we are all aware of, the availability of affordable legal assistance, even for the middle class, is often an illusion. And access to legal assistance for those at the bottom of the economic ladder too frequently is viewed as a luxury, completely out of reach. As a result, individuals facing crises that may affect everything from their ability to earn a livelihood to their right to care for their children find themselves required to navigate a legal system that is largely designed by lawyers, judges, or policymakers, or even worse, stand outside the system, ignorant of or intimidated by the first steps they need to take to avail themselves to the services that can help them or their families. The inability of some individuals to afford legal assistance is not a recent phenomenon and not unique to San Francisco, but the need for our commitment and creativity to come together as a group has never been greater. As a citizen, I urge you to reach out to your colleagues at the Senate, Assembly, and the Governor's office. The ask is simple. Urge your constituents to support funding the court-appointed Dependency Council funding to adequately meet the needs of the program, if for any reason, to ensure that these families and children have proper representation by adequate attorneys who are trained, sometimes the only person that is their stable.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Abigail Trillin. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Services for Children. The foster care system in San Francisco, in which so many of our clients find themselves, is a system in crisis. One of the little known or little spoken about impacts of the housing crisis is not only that so many families are, because of that crisis, unable to remain together, but our clients who end up in foster care are placed all over the Bay Area and beyond, Turlock, Modesto, Sacramento. And so more than ever, children in foster care need independent advocates to travel to see them, to make sure that they are okay, that they are in adequate placements, and to work with the system to reunite families. This is not a time when we can afford to have less funding for attorneys for these children. Many of you were here about a year and a half ago when I spoke on behalf of funding for immigrant children, and this board so bravely provided funding for those services in recognition that these children need attorneys because of what is at stake. And I would say today to you that for our children in foster care, equally enormous issues are at stake. Family integrity, stability, permanency, and the ability to be safe and to thrive and grow into successful adults. So thank you for this resolution, and thank you for your support and advocacy in Sacramento to make sure that this program remains fully funded.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Sabrina Alaguire, and I am here today on behalf of Eva Patterson and the Equal Justice Society, where I serve as acting legal director. Eva sends her regards and would like you to know how strongly she supports this resolution urging funding of dependency counsel. The goal of EJS is to transform the nation's consciousness on race through law, social science, and the arts. As Eva often explains more eloquently than I, our approach is to bring unconscious bias to the surface through incorporating insights from social science and art so that we can address racial discrimination more honestly and directly. You have already heard speakers cite similar data that is contained in the resolution about how deplorably disproportionate the numbers are for African American children being taken into our foster care system and Black families being subjected to dependency court supervision. You have also read how the vast majority of these cases are neglect cases, not abuse. What we know about neglect is that, number one, these allegations are most often related to poverty in terms of lack of access to stable housing, childcare, quality medical and mental health services, and in general, a lack of support and resources that families need to thrive. The second thing we know about allegations of neglect is that this is a discretionary category, allowing broad room for individual opinion, judgment, and indeed bias to enter into decision-making on every level of the system. Social science teaches us that we all have these biases and that even the best-intentioned of people can act often unknowingly on our biases and prejudices just below the surface. We then see that where discretionary categories are employed, whether in suspending children for willful defiance in school or accusing their mothers of neglecting them, the most racial disparity occurs. The reason today's resolution is so important is that high-quality attorneys are one of the very best safeguards against the implicit bias within our child welfare system. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Sharon Meadows, and I'm a professor at the University of San Francisco School of Law and the director of the Criminal and Juvenile Justice Clinic and also the Racial Justice Clinic. I'm here to thank you for this resolution. It's extremely important. I want to just explain to you that another consequence that this fully funding dependency counsel, or not the consequence of not fully funding dependency counsel, is the effect it would have on the delinquency system. By far, many of the kids that we represent in delinquency come from the dependency system. And I don't know if any of you, probably many of you have had the opportunity to go up to what was formerly the Youth Guidance Center, now called the Juvenile Justice Center, and go up to the waiting room and wait for their cases to be called, but they are by far mostly African American kids. So the disproportionality has been talked about. I won't repeat it here, but that is directly related to the disproportionality in dependency court. And having worked for 26 years running this clinic, clinic, I have come to know what the good, who the good dependency attorneys are and the difference they can make in terms of steering the children out of dependency, finding good alternatives to foster care, and to helping navigate the children out of and keeping them out of delinquency. So it is extremely important because a delinquency sustained petition can have an effect on a child forever, including having it count as a strike and having a severe impact on a kid's life. So I urge you to, I thank you for this resolution and urge your support for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Meadows. Next speaker, please.
My name is Jennifer Pasanowski, and I'm a longtime District 2 resident. I've been the coordinator of the San Francisco Family Treatment Court since it began 9 years ago. Family Treatment Court is a collaborative court serving families involved in the child welfare system that are impacted by parental substance use disorders. We bring together social workers, case managers, treatment providers, mental health specialists, and dependency attorneys to help parents reunify with their children and get the support they need to keep their families together. San Francisco's dependency attorneys are an essential part of our team. They share deep knowledge of juvenile dependency law and ensure that participants, parents and children alike, due process rights are protected at all times. For many families, navigating the juvenile dependency process feels like a vast and lonely wilderness. As information flows to the court and our dependency judge, like Judge Davis said, prepare to make decisions with tremendous implications, our experienced dependency attorneys make sure that each parent's voice is heard, that each child's interests are appropriately represented, and that the legally mandated right to effective assistance of counsel is met. This dedicated group of attorneys defend our most basic rights as human beings and citizens of this country. Parents' right to the support we need to raise our children, and children's right to be raised in safe, loving, and nurturing homes. Not only that, they do this work on behalf of our city's most vulnerable families. Protecting children and keeping families together is hard work. It takes a multidisciplinary, cross-systems approach. It is tireless and often thankless, yet our dependency attorneys rise to the occasion every day. It's a privilege to speak in support of San Francisco's dependency attorneys here today. I urge you to vote in favor of this resolution and to do anything in your power to make sure our dependency attorneys remain viable. Anything less is a detriment to San Francisco's children and families. Our fellow San Franciscans deserve access to effective counsel as they navigate.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Patricia Seal. I am a San Francisco juvenile dependency panel attorney. I've been for the last 14 years. If some of you have checked your inbox, you will have read a letter that I sent to each of you yesterday, so I won't read that out loud. But it does contain some very important information about what the financial implications of the budget acts that has fallen on this panel and as well as across the state on one person. Why I'm here today is we had asked for some comments from some of our clients. My clients mostly are kids, and they're not coming. But I do have a letter from two parents that they asked me to read to you today. To the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Our names are Neil and Glenn. 4 years ago, we decided to adopt. While in the foster-adopt licensing process, it became evident that my partner's nephews would soon be seeking new homes as their parents were struggling in many aspects of their lives. This is when the children's attorney came into the picture. The process can be overwhelming when prospective parents are thrown into this daunting process of adopting. We had numerous phone conversations, more than we can remember, and met with the minor's attorney where she would go over the paperwork and inform us about how the parents were doing, making sure that our children received the services they needed and kept the adoption process on track throughout the dependency process, which runs parallel. The boys were living in the Double Rock area of San Francisco and were subject to many bad and hurtful actions in their early years. They saw things, including the shooting death of a 16-year-old neighbor and the arrest of their mother. Things that we could not imagine seeing in our own youth. As a result...
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask if the speaker could continue.
Thank you. As a result, the children have had some issues in school, but are responding well to therapy, which is another area that the lawyer helped facilitate. There were many times when we had questions and concerns, and we would pick up the phone and their lawyer would be there. During and especially after the adoption, there were many times that we could not get in touch with either a social worker or a case manager with regard to urgent issues, and we knew that one phone call to the lawyer would get those issues taken care of quickly. It is very troubling to us to see that the children's attorney and other attorneys like her have not had a pay raise in over 10 years. And even more troubling, they have not been offered any benefits, or now are facing another pay cut. These attorneys do what they do because they are affected by what these children go through and fight for their best interests, often working in somewhat dangerous environments. We are sorry that we could not make it to this hearing today, as we both work full-time with benefits. In order to raise these children in a warm and loving home, we could not have gone through this process without the guidance of the children's lawyer. Respectfully, Neil and Glenn.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk and members of the public, I apologize that we have to do this, but we're going to have to take a pause with public comment at the moment and go back to item 9 on our agenda. You may remember your places in line as we deal with item 9, because we have 2 members of our board who will actually have to leave our meeting very shortly. And so we do want to address this issue before we lose our members. So with that, perhaps I will go to Supervisor Farrell first.
Thank you,
Supervisor Avalos on the roster, or Farrell? Okay, Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, colleagues. I think we'll just pick up where we left off. I know there was questions for our mayor's budget director in terms of the implications of what might happen. How do we pass this? Or if we don't pass this today, and I think there's also sentiment, not to put words in my colleague's mouth, from Supervisor Avalos to split out and separate out fire and DEM at the moment and pass that through separately. So I would say, Supervisor, if you want to do that first, we can do that, or have a separate discussion, whatever you think is appropriate.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. I would like to separate out fire and DEM. I also did hear from the Sheriff's Department that the Sheriff had requisitions blocked for the past 4 years, and that's why they have not been able to achieve their hiring goals. So I could also consider adding Sheriff there as well. Okay. But I don't want to move forward on DPH and Police Department. And I know that there was a lot of politics played with the Sheriff's Department over the past 4 years, and to me, it makes sense that given those politics, that I would be okay to add to my motion the Sheriff's Department, DEM, and Fire to go forward.
Okay.
Thank you. And did we need any explanation from our mayor's budget office at this time?
Maybe we could, at this point, separate out the vote, separate the question, and vote first on fire, DEM, and the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, so that's a motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Supervisor Cohen. Okay, we'll take that without objection for separation. Did you want to have any clarification from the mayor's office first, or would you like to take a vote on that first, separated?
Let's take a vote on that item first.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to do a roll call vote for the separated item, or divided item, which is the fire, DEM, and Sheriff's Department. Madam Clerk.
And to the chair, only the fire requires 8 votes. DEM and Sheriff require 6. Okay. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
No.
Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed.
Wait.
That was fire.
I may not have understood what the actual. We want to go through the vote, and then I'll.
Supervisor Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos. Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no, with Supervisor Avalos in the dissent.
And this passes. This is, just to clarify, this was the portion regarding fire, DEM, and sheriff only.
Can we rescind the vote? I was confused. It's never happened to me before, ever, in my time here, but I would love to see
All right, if you say so. Okay, there was a motion to rescind, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Madam Clerk. Sorry, we'll take that without objection. And now if we can, again, this is fire, DEM, and sheriff only.
Okay. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
This ordinance regarding fire, DEM, and sheriff has been passed on first reading. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I think at this point then, given the remaining items, I know our Mayor's Budget Director is here with us, Mrs. Whitehouse. Maybe I think the question becomes the implications thereof if we don't pass this out today. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes, thank you. Melissa Whitehouse, Mayor's Budget Office. Thank you for passing the ones that you guys already have passed through today. So this entire supplemental, as a reminder, is just moving money from one place to the other. I do have serious concerns about not moving forward the supplemental for the PUC, Department of Public Health, and the Police Department. I would have to talk to each department about what would be the impacts, but I can say that because the numbers are large, it really would have an impact on their day-to-day service. I don't know exactly what it would mean, but I think the impacts would be really serious, and in particular, the police department number is very large, and so I would just be really worried about their ability to provide service through the rest of the year if they didn't have this money moved from one place to another. I don't know if you have specific questions, but I'm happy to take them.
Colleagues, any questions, comments for Mayor's Budget Office? Okay, seeing none, then is there any sort of suggestion, motion on the remainder of this item? Supervisor Farrell?
Yeah, I'd like to have a motion to vote on this item. I think, at least from my perspective, I understand all my colleagues' comments earlier again, and I think that is instructive in terms of how we're going to handle some things into budget season this year. But I would personally like to see this item move forward today if there are the votes, and because I do believe of the implications within our public safety departments, I certainly want to see this go forward.
Okay. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, then Madam Clerk, if we can call the roll on the remainder of the item.
DPH, Police, and PUC. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
No.
Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
No.
Campos, no. Supervisor Cohen.
Yes.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, no. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
No.
Peskin, no. There are 7 ayes and 4 noes, with Supervisors Avalos, Campos, Kim, and Marr in the dissent.
This ordinance regarding
Supervisor Peskin.
Madam Clerk, I was
Peskin in the dissent.
in favor. Yeah.
All right, this ordinance passes on first reading and was regarding just DPH, Police, and PUC for this portion. Thank you.
Only for the fire.
And thank you, members of the public, for waiting patiently. We're now going to resume public comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Samute Freeman, and I'm an attorney at the Juvenile Public Defender's Office here in San Francisco. I both live and work in San Francisco, and I'm a proud resident of the Tenderloin. Although I now work at the Public Defender's Office, I began my career as an attorney representing children and youth in the dependency system here in San Francisco. Often when I share with friends and family that I work with foster youth or delinquent youth in out-of-home placements, the reaction is surprise, and they often say things like, "There are foster youth in San Francisco?" I'm here to share briefly how this invisible and highly vulnerable population and their families will be further underserved by insufficient funding of the Dependency Council in San Francisco. I cannot stress enough the importance of having a strong advocate in the dependency system for youth and their families. As public defenders, we have always partnered with Dependency Council to ensure that youth remain in the child welfare system because it serves their best interests. We see far too many foster youth cross over into the delinquency system, and the advocacy of Dependency Council to keep them served by the dependency system is crucial. Dependency attorneys facilitate collaboration between service providers to ensure that clients receive appropriate services such as housing, mental health supports, and family counseling. In our experience, families of color and poor families are heavily impacted by the child welfare system in San Francisco, and strong advocacy protects against the unfair division of black and brown families here in our city. The state has created the right to counsel in dependency proceedings for children and their parents, yet this right is a hollow promise if it is not sufficiently funded. Experienced and dedicated counsel who know their clients and can advocate for their needs should not be a luxury, and we as a community should ensure that the most vulnerable children and their families in San Francisco are adequately represented in dependency proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Espinosa. I'm the Executive Director of San Francisco CASA. With 25 years of service to children and families involved in the city's foster care system, San Francisco Court-Appointed Special Advocate Program has come to the frightening realization that budget cuts to dependency counsel over the last 6 years have given an alarming rise to the number of instances that an attorney must choose between providing competent, effective representation and adherence to a budget that grows more unethical and amoral every year. More than 60% of our children in foster care are African American, and nearly 99% of our children in dependency come from poverty. When their right to counsel is compromised, both the short and long-term effects are catastrophic. Inadequate funding and impossible high caseloads for dependency counsel in service to some of our community's most marginalized members. It's an issue of race, it's an issue of poverty, and it's an issue of equity. I recall the longstanding attorney to a sibling group who can no longer maintain monthly 60-minute participation in critical case meetings where she has provided consistent and highly skilled representation to her clients. Further, over the course of 3 years, this attorney has represented the sibling group through 7 changes in social workers, 4 placement changes, re-abuse allegations, 3 formal case plans, and countless decisions about school, physical, mental health treatment, family engagement, all while these children have been placed in non-relative foster homes more than 90 miles away from San Francisco. This attorney's clients have faced significantly more trauma in their short-lived lives than most. With question, the attorney's contribution on behalf of these children has been significant. San Francisco CASA urges the Board of Supervisors to pass this resolution, urging legislator, the Judicial Council, and Governor Brown to adequately fund the Dependency Council at $80 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Shira Andron, and I'm representing the Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program with the San Francisco Unified School District. We work closely with dependency attorneys in promoting positive educational outcomes for students in foster care. Dependency attorneys are integral in advocating for the needs of youth in foster care in all domains of their lives, and are crucial partners in advocating for the educational rights of foster youth. In particular, they are directly involved in supporting school stability so that foster youth don't have to change schools if they move home placements. And research has shown that educational outcomes are improved when there is school stability. They also work at ensuring that an educational rights holder is appointed and available to oversee the educational needs of youth in foster care. In addition, they support the behavioral and special education needs of their clients through participation in school-based meetings. Our dependency attorneys are important partners in this process, and we wholeheartedly support their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I serve the translator.
各位好，我叫沈月谦，我是旧金山的居民，也是一名法轮功的修炼者，也是天国乐团的成员。
Greetings, Supervisor. My name is Carmen Shen, and I'm a resident of San Francisco. I'm also a practitioner of Falun Gong. I'm also a member of the Divine Land Marching Band.
上个月，我们报名参加了日本城的新年游行活动。当我们练习和准备了很长的时间，就在游行即将开始的时候，我们被取消游行资格，因为我们打出的 banner 是法轮大法。
Last month, we applied to participate in the Japantown's Cherry Blossom Parade. We practiced and prepared for a long time. Right before the parade started, we were canceled the eligibility to participate in the parade. The reason is the banner that we put out says Falun Dafa or Falun Gong.
在美国这个自由民主的国家，在旧金山这个多元文化的城市，我们受到这样的歧视，这让我感到非常的震惊和难以接受。
In the free and democratic nation of America and in the multicultural San Francisco, being treated in such a way, I was really, really shocked and very, very difficult for me to accept this.
我在中国北京曾经是一名很成功的商人，因为修炼法轮功，我的身体变得非常健康，家庭也非常幸福。
I was a very successful businesswoman in Beijing, China. But because of practicing then after practicing Falun Gong, I become very healthy. I got a very harmonious family.
不幸的是，因为我坚持信仰，在中国被强行关到劳教所2年，遭受酷刑，强迫做奴工。
Because I insist on my belief, so during the persecution, I was locked up in the labor camp for 2 years. I was tortured and I have to do the slave labor.
我7岁的女儿亲眼见我被警察抓走，精神受到惊吓。我被关押期间，我原来经营的很成功的公司被逼申请破产。
When I was arrested by the police, my daughter was 7 years old. She was mentally shocked. During my detainment, my once successful business went into bankruptcy.
后来我来到了美国，终于可以自由选择我的信仰。我非常感激这一切，因此参加了天国乐团，希望能用美好的音乐带给更多的人欢乐，让大家了解法轮大法的美好。
Then later, I managed to come to the United States, and finally, I got a right to choose the belief that I want to choose. I'm very thankful for this. So for that, I participated in the Divine Land Marching Band. I want to use beautiful music to bring happiness to people and to let people understand the beauty of Falun Dafa.
我们参加了好莱坞大游行，参加了旧金山复活节游行，都获得了赞美。我们参加了哥伦布游行，获得了第1名。我们还参加了 UC Davis 的游行，获得了掌声。所有的人都喜欢我们的服装和精彩的演出。
We participated in the Hollywood Parade. We participated in the Easter Parade of San Francisco. We participated in the Columbus Day Parade and also participated in the UC Davis Parade. And in the Columbus Day Parade, we got number 1.
我希望你们能重视了解我们这次被拒绝的事情，希望能帮助我们，让更多的人欣赏我们的游行，了解法轮大法的美好。
I really wish you would pay attention and find out, why we were rejected by this Cherry Blossom Parade. I wish you would be able to help us to, find opportunities so that more people can see our parade and understand the beauty of Falun Dafa.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
各位好，我叫石娇。今年4月，天国乐团参加了日本城的新年游行活动，当时有几十个游行队伍。我们的申请得到了批准，我们认真准备了2天，预先练习了很久。可是，在游行前几分钟，在没有任何正当理由的情况下，被告知不可以参加游行，因为我们是法轮功。那时，所有的队伍在我们面前走过，奇怪地看着我们。当时我觉得非常非常的难过。
In April, during the Japantown's Cherry Blossom Parade, there were dozens of parade units. We were approved our application. We prepared for 2 full days. We practiced for a longer time. A few minutes before the parade, without any clear, explicit reason, we were told we cannot join the parade. The reason is we are Falun Gong. At that time, all the parade team walked past us. They were looking at us with in a strange way. At that time, I feel very, very sad.
我是一名法轮功修炼者，从小因为身体不好，经常打针吃药去医院。03年在病重就医无效的情况下，开始修炼法轮功，并在几天内奇迹康复，从此身体无病一身轻，一直到今天，原来的忧郁症也好了。我按照法轮功真善忍的准则来要求自己的言行，我的家庭也由原来的争吵不断，后来变得能和睦相处，身心受益，让我成为法轮功的信仰者。可是这么美好的法轮功却被中国共产党极力的打压迫害，造谣抹黑，非法拘捕法轮功学员，酷刑迫害，甚至为了谋取暴利而活体摘除法轮功学员的器官进行贩卖。我参加天国乐团就是为了让公众知道法轮功的真相，我希望用美好的音乐让更多人了解法轮功的真相。
I'm a practitioner of Falun Gong. I was very weak when I was young. I have to go to the hospital very often to take injection and take medicine. In 2003, I was really, really sick and cannot find any cure. I started practicing Falun Gong in a few days. I was able to recover. So I've had been sickness since then until today. Falun Gong also cured my depression. So I use Falun Gong's principles, which is truth, compassion, and tolerance, to apply that to my daily life. My family become very harmonious too. Because of I benefit both in my health and in mentally, I become a practitioner of Falun Gong. However, such beautiful Falun Gong was persecuted by Chinese government and was attacked with all kinds of defamation. And we were arrested, we were tortured, and some of us lose our life. Practitioners lose our life for the organ harvesting for profit. I joined the Celestial Band. The reason is for people, to the public, to know about the truth of Falun Gong. I wish to use beautiful music for people to find out the beauty of Falun Gong.
在自由民主的美国，在开放的旧金山，居然出现这种在共产党的统治下才会出现的歧视和侮辱。我觉得这是旧金山的耻辱。我希望各位可以关注这件事情，不要让这种不公在旧金山继续发生。谢谢。
In the free and democratic United States, and in the open and liberal San Francisco, and we even found that this kind of thing could happen. This is, I see this as a shame of this, our great city. I wish you to pay attention to this. Don't let this injustice happen again in our city of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
大家好，我叫唐丽娟，现在是旧金山居民。原来在中国大陆是行政学院的哲学副教授。由于我修炼法轮功，我被共产党迫害的家破人亡。儿子27岁，从99年开始迫害法轮功的时候，就一直有家不能回，有班不能上。而且呢，就是经过了6个劳教所，经过6次被非法抓捕，好的。
My name is Li Juntang, and I was associate professor of philosophy in the Chinese college. And during the persecution, my family was completely destroyed. Starting in 1999, my 27-year-old son was locked up in six labor camps.
经过了4个劳教所，最后迫害致死。最后出来的时候是人已经脱相了。我去看他的时候，在那个辽宁的一个劳教所，人被寒冷的冬天穿的单鞋单衣服，被绑在硬板床上，上边插着那个灌食的管子，下边插着导尿管，因为不能正常排尿。就是人已经迫害的生命垂危，也没有放人，最后好长时间才放出来，放出来以后就过世了。
He was locked up in 4 labor camps, and he was tortured in all kinds of ways. And in the northeast China, it was very, very cold. He can only wear a single layer of clothes, and then they just bind him up to the board for a long time, and he also force feeding him with a tube into his stomach. So after he was, let out of labor camp, finally he died.
由于在中国大陆不能有冤不能诉，我就因此儿子被冤枉致死，法轮功被冤枉，我就也为他申冤，没有门路，我就自己做资料告诉大家法轮功是冤枉的，所以后来我也被关押3年半，非法在监狱里待了3年半。
Then, because there's no way for me to seek any justice for my son, so I just have nowhere to go. Then I have to, print out the material and let the public know about what happened to my son. And because of that, I was arrested and put in the labor camp for 3.5 years.
我有幸出国了。当时我就想起我儿子当时说了一句话，就是哎呀，妈妈，我们以后出国吧，这中国这个太邪恶了。 我儿子却没有出来，我出来了，我就想把这个法轮大法的美好告诉世人。
I'm lucky enough they managed to escape China. And before I left China, I remember my son told me, it's so evil here. Can we go outside of China? He couldn't. I am able to. I just want to let people know about the beauty of Falun Gong, this meditation exercise.
我想把这个迫害的惨遭、迫害的这个真相告诉世人。可是在美国呢，我前几天就是4月份，我们发生了我们法轮功天国乐团受阻，我不能理解，而且我请求大家能够帮助法轮功能够结束在中国这场惨无人道的迫害。
That's my experience. I cannot understand why we cannot even join the parade here. I want you to know this.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
我是联合国的难民，批的难民来到美国。现在我是在中国城住，我是中国城的居民。
I'm a resident of Chinatown. I was a refugee of United Nations Human Rights Refugee Agency.
因为我在大陆，我也是被抓了2次，一次劳教，一次判刑。拘留1次，现在联合国给我分到这儿来了，我不知道，上次樱花节为什么把这个，我本来来的时候心里还挺有指望的，有信仰了，在这地方还可以了，可以信仰随便信仰，听说是美国随便信仰，来到这儿以后，他们为什么把这个不让我们参加？天国乐团游行，我也不知道为什么。
I was arrested twice. Once to the labor camp, another to the jail, to the prison. So I managed to come to United States. Assisted by the UN Refugee Service. I came here and I thought this is. I was very hopeful. I think this is a land that can allow free practice and free belief. I just cannot understand why did it happen last month at the parade.
我在监狱的时候也给我了酷刑了几次。我做过禁闭，在监狱给我做过禁闭，在刑事逼供的时候把我吊起来，2个胳膊挂在轮胎。现在到美国，我想没有这种事儿了。我现在又是我的忧虑症，这段时间又开始犯了，因为我老害怕，像在中国的时候，是不是这场迫害还要来呀？我现在就是经常睡不着觉。
I was tortured several times. My hand was hung up in a tire, and I come to the United States, and now I'm started losing sleep because my depression came back because I was worried about the persecution of Falun Gong. Could that extend to this country?
为什么他们不让我们？我想是不是江泽民的他一手朝天，他也能上这儿来跟你们说，你们别听他的谎言，因为江泽民所办的这些事儿全是在撒谎、造假，因为他天安门自焚他就是假的，因为他有好多东西不是我们法轮功里头有的些东西，什么自焚，我们根本就连杀生都不让我们杀生，我们怎么还能自焚呢？
Okay, so I was thinking that if all this happened because of you were influenced by the Jiang Zemin, who's the initiator of the persecution, the former party secretary general of Chinese Communist Party, don't believe in him. What he said about Falun Gong is all lies, including the so-called Tiananmen self-immolation. That's just lie.
他那个气管嘎断，他怎么还能唱歌呢？他又是一个孩子。 他又是一个孩子，他还能唱歌。那个王进东呢，他那个自己点燃了火，就那个啤酒瓶子他也不化。
So basically, what happened during that self-immolation incident are not just ridiculous.
我想让那些人都不要听他的谎言，听他的谎言可能就是要 就要跟他一样找到一种迫害，不要听，让大伙明白我们法轮功究竟是干什么的。
I wish to understand what Falun Gong is really about. Don't believe in the lies of Communist Party.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you.
大家好，我叫徐一博，住在三后 C， 我的工作是平面美术设计员。我是一名法轮功修炼者，也是旧金山天国乐团的一名成员。
My name is Ella Xu. I live in San Jose. My job is a graphic designer, and I'm also a Falun Dafa practitioner. I'm also a member of the Divine Land Marching Band.
我今天向政府提出的诉求是，希望天国乐团能够参加日本城明年举办的游行活动。
What I'm trying to appeal here is that I wish that our band is able to participate in the parade of the Japantown Cherry Blossom.
因为今年4月17日，天国乐团全体成员在参加日本城举办的游行活动现场，临时遭到举办方的拒绝，这件事情让我们受到了极大的伤害。
We were deeply hurt by the rejection that happened at the parade at the last minute.
因为他们拒绝的理由是我们举了一个写有法轮大法字样的旗帜。众所周知，天国乐团从建团到现在一直都是用的写有法轮大法字样蓝底金字的旗帜，大家可以在 Google 上搜索一下天国乐团便可以看到。
The rejection reason is because we put out a banner that says Falun Dafa. As everybody know that the banner we use from day one has always say Falun Dafa. You can Google and find out. We never hide it.
我自己在修炼法轮大法前是一个风湿性关节炎的患者，修炼第1年我就神迹般的好了。那么在过后的这10年间，我的身体一直很健康，没有再犯这种病。我作为美国社会的一员，我真心希望把我在法轮大法当中得到的美好健康告诉大家。因此我参加了美国天国乐团，以音乐演奏的方式平和神圣，想把大法的美好展现给社区。
Before practicing this exercise, I had this rheumatoid arthritis, but I practiced for 1 year. Then miraculously, it went away. Now I have practiced for over 10 years. I'm very healthy, and the illness never come back to bother me. I'm also a member of the American Society. I really want to convey the beauty and health that I got from Falun Dafa to the public. For that reason, I participate in this band. I wish to use this music and use peaceful way, to divine way, to show the society this is a beautiful exercise.
可是日本城的主办方以强权的方式拒绝了我们，仅仅因为我们打有法轮大法字样的旗帜，使我们上百人的团体不能参加演出。这不仅是对我们的歧视，也剥夺了更多人能够知道法轮大法，知道真善忍这一普世价值的机会。
However, we were forcefully rejected at the parade. The only reason is because of that banner that wrote Falun Dafa. And rejecting our band, which has over 100 people. This is not only discrimination, it also take away the opportunity of the public who through this parade can know about what is really about Falun Dafa and its value, truth, compassion, and tolerance.
我诚挚的希望议员们能够帮助我们，帮助社区，能够使天国乐团明年参加日本城的举办活动。
I hereby sincerely plead you to help us so that our band is able to participate in the future Cherry Blossom Parade in Japantown.
谢谢大家。
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I'm going to give a follow-up on these navigation centers that's been proposed. The mayor said he wants to spend $120 million per navigation center. Building navigation center is not going to take care of the homeless problem. The homeless people income is between $18,000 and $26,000 a year. The majority of them have a combination of both mental and physical disabilities, got permanent disability income pertaining to their jobs and Social Security income, and also are veterans. You're delivering an adverse effect, and you keep perpetuating this homeless problem on the grounds that you're building thousands of brand new apartments and brand new apartment buildings, but you keep setting the entry level for requirement at 55% of the median. I've said this several times. The median is $41,480 a year, and the people who you claim and campaign that you want to help that are homeless out in the street can't even qualify. Last time I was here, even President Bree was under the impression that people who are below the 55% median are eligible to apply, when the truth of the matter is you have to have an income of 55% of the median in order to apply for these below market rate apartment building complexes and these other apartment building complexes that you're building in the city. Furthermore, this Human Services Agency, talking about they're addressing housing by means of using city funds to deport and export citizens that were born and raised here in the city is a bunch of nonsense. You actually deport citizens and then by the same response import illegal immigrants, giving them services, and as a result, illegal aliens are paying $3 a month for a brand new apartment at the Kelly Cullen building. Illegal aliens are paying $25 a month for a brand new apartment buildings that's owned by Episcopal community housing organizations, and then numerous of you supervisors had the nerve to talk about due process.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Supervisors. And I come here to address the rejection of Divine Land Marching Band made up of Falun Gong practitioners by Japantown's Cherry Blossom Parade in last month. I would like to address the issue from another angle, what Falun Gong is essentially about. I'm Xi Chen, and I'm originally from China. I'd like to share with you how I came to practice Falun Gong. When I was a child, my grandmother told me the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. These words were carved in my heart because I was certain these principles would guide me to become a better person. I went to the United Kingdom for my master's degree. During that time, I began to read the book Zhan Fa Lun, the main book of Falun Gong. Many things are happening in this world, but modern science cannot explain. Falun Dafa is a Buddha Fa which explains every question of human cosmos, giving me answers other than any other theories and books. The concepts in Zhan Fa Lun were very deep, and I was deeply touched by it. The book teaches people how and why we should be a good person, nothing like the Chinese party has talked about, such as Falun Gong kill themselves or taking medicine isn't allowed. This book is very rational, and I know the book influenced over 100 million people all over the world. All of us receive uplifting spiritual and health benefits from Falun Gong. So I urge you to look into the practice in more depth so that you would be better informed when making decisions on Falun Gong related matter. This is to the benefit to you and to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Karen Fleshman, and I'm an attorney, Huffington Post blogger, anti-racism trainer, and a proud member of the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. I was here last week to speak to you about my wish for you to remove Chief Sir, and I want to thank Supervisors Kim, Campos, Avalos, and Mar for stepping forward and calling for a national search to replace Chief Sir. I want to urge all of you to join them. At the last hearing of District Attorney George Gascon's Blue Ribbon panel, teams of pro bono lawyers explained in meticulous detail their findings of racism and lack of accountability in every aspect of SFPD operations, including that the San Francisco Police Officers Association and SFPD are not distinct entities. The most troubling finding is that the people who conduct background checks for potential officers are retired SFPD who subscribe to an old school mentality. That mentality is best described by its chief culture officer, former SFPOA President Gary DeLagnes. I enter into public record Mr. DeLagnes' Facebook post of May 7th. After the findings were issued on Monday, Mayor Lee came to this chamber and said he's spending $17 million to change SFPD culture. He went into the community to say he would restore trust in SFPD. He issued a press release that officers at Bayview Station who overheard their sergeant say, "I want to come to Bayview so I can shoot N-words," turned him in as evidence that SFPD is not systemically racist. Gary Delagna's Facebook post is in response to Mayor Lee's actions.
Thank you. The Sergeant at Arms will come and pick that up from you. Next speaker, please.
各位议员好，首先感谢各位能给我这样的机会表达自己的心声。今天在这里发言，我感到心情比较沉
Sir,
重。
please speak directly into the microphone.
Okay. Greetings, supervisors. First, I want to thank you for giving me this precious opportunity to express what I have in my mind. While I was speaking here, I feel I really have a heavy heart.
当我听到天国乐团仅仅是因为法轮大法的修炼人群而被蛮横地取消游行资格的时候，我感到无比的震惊。我无法想象，在自由的美国土地上会出现这样的事情。
I was really shocked when I first learned about the Divine Land Marching Band was rejected from the Japantown Cherry Blossom Parade. I just cannot imagine that in the free land of America, such thing could happen.
在中国，我曾经因为信仰并向他人介绍法轮大法的美好，4次被抓，先后2次被送进劳教所进行迫害。
In China, because I let people know about what it really is about Falun Gong, I was arrested 4 times. 2 times I was sent into labor camps and was tortured there.
那些痛苦的经历，至今不堪回首。
It was very, very severe suffering. The suffering, I just cannot even look back.
当我和女儿去年庇护踏上美国领土的时候，我们的心中充满了喜悦。 不仅仅是因为这里清新的空气和周围人与人之间友好和尊重，更因为我知道我再也不用担心因为对法轮大法的信仰而被抓、被打或失去自由了。
When I was able to escape China and step on the land of America, my heart was filled with joy because not only because of this clean air here, because of the mutual respect and the friendliness in this country. I also know that I would no longer need to worry about I would be, beaten or lose freedom because I practice Falun Dafa.
法轮大法的原则是真善忍，我觉得对真善忍品格的维护，就应该像维护人们对清洁的空气和水的渴望。
The principle of Falun Dafa is the 3 words: truth, compassion, and tolerance. I believe to safeguard those values is the same as to safeguard the right to breathe clean air and clean water.
对于旧金山这样包容和自由的城市，更应该成为保护和支持真善忍的伟大城市。我希望尊敬的各位议员能给予支持，帮助纠正这些对法轮功天国乐团的不公正和错误行为。我相信你们的善行也会给这个城市带来福报。
I think for San Francisco, a city with tolerance and freedom, it should become a great city that safeguard and support truth, compassion, and tolerance. I wish all the supervisors here give us support, help correct or rectify the injustice that happened to the Divine Land Marching Band.
再次感谢大家。
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have my speech here for 2 minutes. My name is Alan Zhang, a resident of San Francisco, and I'm a businessman. I manage about 200 people, and it's not easy to come up here, for 2 weeks, and so are the other folks here. However, I do want to elaborate a little bit about the very reason behind this rejection. Of course, clearly it's because of Falun Gong, and then why? Falun Gong, in short, is a meditation exercise that was become very popular in China in the 1990s for 2 reasons: health benefit and because of the moral value. In China, when all the good value were destroyed by the Cultural Revolution, people find so dear to embrace those values: truth, compassion, and tolerance. Then, because of too popular, very simple reason, it's too popular. So the Communist Party, Jiang Zemin, start banning this group to try to wipe it out. To wipe it out, they have to have reason. They cannot say you are too popular. Okay, so he created reason. Falun Gong is an evil cult. They're crazy people, and then they are political, things like that. And in order to sustain that reason, he have to make sure that no Falun Gong is seen or heard and know about. So Ms. Rose Pak is a personal friend of Jiang Zemin. Okay, she went to China and she got that agenda from him. She come back. Ms. Rose Pak, no Falun Gong practitioner, as I said last week. So, but because of she got that agenda, she started to pressure the then supervisors and the mayor and the current mayor to shy away from Falun Dafa. Okay, I want to just raise one simple point here. Okay, why we need to change here? Okay, San Francisco, known for its tolerance, for its diversity and inclusiveness, should not do this. Think about in the future when looking back, we played the role of assisting Nazi German to persecute and killing Jews. We don't want in that role. The second, that is exactly happening. Jiang Zemin is being purged in China in a very quick time. He will lose power, and we're still doing this. This is just ridiculous. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Tom Gilberti. I hope the parade gets resolved. I hope the people get their funding. South Beach Marina Apartments opened in August 1,000 years ago in 88. I moved in 99. I am market rate. My situation still is unresolved. As a child growing up in grade school, you would play, we had gym, you would choose sides. You would flip odds and ends and you would start picking. And usually at the end of that picking, you had to take the whole class. There were people that couldn't catch, couldn't kick, but they were included. But I'm not part, I came here once before and I said that I'm not part of the giant parking lot because you are not part of the team if you're a veteran that's mentally kind of disjointed. You're not part of the team if you're a senior who's outlived Social Security benefits, pensions, insurance, abilities. You're not part of the team that graduated a foster care kid. You're not part of the team if you're a Section 8 person. You're not part of the team if you're a convict seeking a new term. 11 acres and nothing for the mentally challenged, the less fortunate, an autistic child or an adult. You're not part of this team if you're homeless, and the homeless are living around it right now. We need housing from the private sector that resolves our community, and our community needs to be included all the way across the board and planned that way. 30% open market rate is the way it should go, and that should be rent control too. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I believe there are no other individuals in line for public comment. That concludes
Thank
public
you.
comment.
Seeing no other public comment, then public comment is now closed. Now, Madam Clerk, if we could please read the without reference to committee items.
Items 31 and 34 are on the agenda without reference to committee. A single roll call vote may enact these items unless a member severs it and has it considered separately.
All right, colleagues, does anyone want to sever an item from the calendar? I see Supervisor Cohen on the roster.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to sever item number 31.
Thank you. Any other
33.
members? 33 from our clerk. All right. On the remainder balance, roll call, please.
On items 32 and 34, Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener. Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos not present. Supervisor Breed. Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Aye. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Thank you. Those resolutions and motions are approved and adopted. Item 31, please.
Item 31 is a resolution to urge the California State Legislature, the Judicial Council, and Governor Jerry Brown to adequately fund dependency counsel in the state of California.
Supervisor Cohen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. As we close out our board agenda, I'd just like to ask for your support. Want to impress upon you what you've already heard during public comment from the Judge Davis, as well as representatives from the SF Bar and a few other of the advocates that have come to talk about the importance of dependency court. Dependency courts are charged with ensuring that the health and safety of children who've been victims of abuse and neglect. 2 weeks ago, we discussed the state statute that mandates that dependency courts appoint counsel to represent indigent parents and all minors in dependency proceedings. The Judicial Council of California is unable to sufficiently fund court-appointed dependency counsel statewide, and the outdated funding model is based on a caseload of 188 cases per attorney. Now, using this model, a minimum of an additional $22 million state funding is required. The American Bar Association recommended a caseload of 100 cases. The maximum caseload standard is 188, but in California, our dependency caseloads are nearly double that. The Bar Association of San Francisco oversees the administration of the Dependency Representation Program of San Francisco. And again, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the members of the SF Bar Association for their partnership. Especially want to recognize Ms. Julie Tron. She's been incredible organizing. She's the director of court programs, and she's been in charge of helping to highlight the importance of this issue. I also want to take a moment and recognize Mawuli Tubenyo in my office, who's been instrumental in drafting the language. And again, to all the advocates that came out, including Judge Davis. The consequences of the court's decisions are lifelong for every member of the family and an overwhelmingly and profoundly impacting on young children and families of color. I hope to have your support on this resolution. I want to also recognize and thank my co-sponsors, Supervisors Kim, Peskin, and Breed. So colleagues, before we vote on this resolution, I have two minor technical amendments that I'd like to present to you. I've already circulated the language, so you should have it in front of you. On page 2, lines 14 through 15, to reflect accurate statistics, this sentence should read, quote, "The index for San Francisco's foster youth is 8 to 10 times that for San Francisco's African American families, and the index is 1.8 for San Francisco's Latino families," end quote. At the request of Supervisor Peskin, I'm changing the final further resolved clause to request that a copy of this resolution be sent to the city lobbyist. Thank you for your consideration and hopefully support of this measure.
Thank you. And so there was a motion by Supervisor Cohen for this amendment and seconded by Supervisor Farrell. We'll take that without objection. Supervisor Marr.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the community-based organizations, the staff, the dependency court attorneys, Judge Davis, and so many others for just raising what should be a no-brainer issue that the state and locally we should be supporting these courts that serve so many children and parents and communities. It's about, as the statement read by Eva Patterson said, it's about equal justice for everyone, but especially equity for the most needy children in our city. So I just thank Supervisor Cohen. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well. But thank you for waiting out the whole meeting in an extremely dignified manner, and I'm really glad that you're bringing this issue up.
Thank you, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this item as well. And with that, Madam Clerk, if we could take roll call on item 31.
As amended, Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener? Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee? Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos? Avalos, absent. Supervisor Breed? Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Thank you. This resolution is adopted. Item 33, please.
Item 33 is a motion to schedule the Board of Supervisors to sit as a committee of the whole on June 28th at 3 p.m. to hold a public hearing on a resolution approving a report of assessment costs submitted by the Director of Public Works for sidewalk inspection and repair program.
And so, Madam Chair, one pager was passed out during public comment. A motion is required. The department submitted the incorrect code reference, and we would like it to be corrected on lines 8 and 15 to strike sections 707 and 707.1 and to amend on lines 7, 14, and 15 with section 706.9 and Administrative Code section 80 in both places.
So moved.
Thank you. And we have a motion by Supervisor Peskin, or seconded by Supervisor Breed. Thank you. And we'll take that without objection. And now, colleagues, on this as amended, roll call, please.
Supervisor Tang as amended?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener? Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos? Avalos absent. Supervisor Breed? Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos? Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr? Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Thank you. This resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk, are there any in memoriams today?
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individual on behalf of Supervisor Peskin for the late Mr. Adolph Joseph Capuro.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, are there any other items before us today?
That concludes our business for today.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.